Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout out to Abraham Mohammed, Adam, Adrian Quintana, Alistair Main, Billy Highvolt, Blue Ridge Ranger, Burned Fat Till My Stomach Is As Flat As the Earth, Chow Yun Cat, Dank, Dave Rakia Gafford, David Wayne Foster, Daz Studio 68, Edwin Johnson, Erwin Jennisons, Felix Hung, Fireball X, God Rockin', Henrik86, Jeranism, Joshua Balsimo, Kirsten Smith, Liam Nedrick, Life is Short, Matt, Missouri Bear, Nagara, Nathan Thompson, Naibai, Qatar Craig, Renee, Rob H, Sally Ballis, Silver Umbrella, Skeptic936, Texas Mike, The Real Gabster, Tina Baker, Tom Hawkins, and Windrider. So a massive shout out of appreciation to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now we are joined by a few people in both the Discord and G Plus panel, so I'll raise the mic on them and you can enjoy the dulcet tones of whoever the hell is in there while I set up for the next live show.
I already know the argument for gravity, but nothing destroys a ball like having no ball.
So who sent this picture?
Bev at MIUK, and some of the other ones that we get that I post is from Domesticated Primate, also from MIUK.
Okay, let's just get it on screen. Just give me a couple of seconds. Good enough.
Yeah, there was Kirsten One with a K, who's also there at MIUK, brought this to my attention a while back ago. But he said, well, shouldn't the sun be setting 1.23 miles out if you're 1 foot observer height on the globe? And I said, very good point. So I think Bev went and made this meme because of the back and forth on that.
Excellent. Yeah, as I said just before we started recording, this opens a whole can of worms, and once things like this demonstrate to me that obviously the guy gets the argument. It was the same with Spurs. So when Spurs started asking for what radar was measuring, intrinsically I understood that he got the argument and knew where to take it. He doesn't have to overtly express the fact that he definitely understands the argument, but I know that he knows where he's going with the argument because he understands it. And you don't even have to ask that many questions or be so explicit as to say, give us the modus tollens formulation so I understand you understand. You can just tell by what they're asking about, how they're asking about it, which is good because it means I waste a lot less time with trolley comments, because often you can just ignore them on account of the fact that you can tell just by the way they're phrasing whatever they're phrasing that they're not actually grasping the argument at all. But this is great. This shows a complete grasp of the argument, so I love it.
Yeah, it's a tell, isn't it? When you already know where Spurs is going, but the guy or whoever he's talking to is still in the fog about it. But oh man, this is going to end well, right? If you're flat earther.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, those other guys are still in yesterday, you could say.
Well, it's just amazing that they keep bringing in astronomical horizon, or refraction and all that kind of stuff, which has nothing to do with terrestrial, but they'll bring it in.
It's going to be a lot of worming and weaseling. There's no two ways about it. And I've already predicted this a couple of times. I think there'll be infighting amongst the Globers because they've all got different ad hoc explanations for this black swan problem.
Mm-hmm. Well, can I just say what's...
Yeah, well, they slammed into a corner. So.
I
Say
think...
again, Flatsoid?
No, I said
I was...
they squirmed into a corner, so they have no.
Yes, like cornered animals. That's another analogy I've used. That's why they lie, because they're cornered with a lot of these. Like checkmate is what I use in the comment section. But when you're checkmated, you're gonna behave like a cornered animal, and that's why they lie and disregard their previous arguments that they've had in favour of a new position that completely contradicts it, and then they lie about their old position, or they flat out lie about how the calculations work with apparent sizes, which they don't use, while they're simultaneously telling us our own arguments about how everything's apparent when talking about physicality and globe geometry. They don't understand their own doublespeak yet, but it's glaring to anybody who does recognise it. Or potentially, I can't predict this because I'm not, but for those on the outside, I'd be intrigued to know how they view this. The zealots, they're going to doublespeak their own way around it in their own mind because they want the globe to be true. So, that I can understand and explain and justify why they're behaving like cornered animals and lying through their back teeth. Or, other side of that coin is disregard their own model. Like I say, it's checkmate, there's no way out of this, but they've got to do something, right? But each way they go is just another dead end, another piece in the way on the chessboard. So, like I say, I want to know how the people on the outside of this, the ones that aren't necessarily zealots, how they view the argument, but that will only be told with time.
That's exactly where you guys just had the conversation I was going to have with you, but it's awesome. It's your term, checkmate. So no matter which move they make, it's over because it's checkmate. So it doesn't matter which way they go, it's over. So if there's no sphere with the horizon of a symmetrical sphere needing to be somewhere that it's not, then there's no sphere. It's over. So if it's over, then who cares about gravity and all the other nonsense arguments we've been having, describing I don't know if the right word, ancillary arguments to the main one. Are we on the ball? Are we, all this stuff. So if we can prove we're not on the ball, game over, all the other arguments don't matter. So this is the one right here.
Yeah, I tried to iterate that to Red Pill Philosophy. You left me a comment on, I think it was, I've got like a standard fair debunking for people who think they can address the Black Swan. So Planner Walk was the most recent. I just went and spammed his comments with the link to my debunking, which was done in advance of his video, which I was quite pleased about. Like, here you go, Planner Walk debunked. And he just asserts all the same shit that they all assert. It's refraction. They essentially deny their own geometry in order to justify the argument. It's like, yeah, you clearly don't really get this argument, do you? Otherwise you wouldn't be saying, yeah, of course the horizon's non-geometric. Like, oh God, you guys don't get it. But you'll happily hang yourselves to try and make a video responding to it. And that's all they're doing. They're literally putting nooses around their own necks and going, our horizon's not geometric. You're like, yeah, pull that noose. It's just pathetic.
I like the new magnification video.
Say again.
I like the new twist in the magnification.
Still didn't catch that. I'm really sorry.
He's talking about BLM BS69, if I said it right.
The magnification video. Is that what he's talking about? The magnification video?
Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. That's been covered by Ranty and Rob Skeever. I'm not knocking him. I'm not saying it hasn't been covered. And considering how annoyed I got when everyone was like, "Oh, it's a white swan. It's all been done before." In this instance, no. This is actually. I'm lending more credence to it by saying that. In other words, this has been heavily demonstrated previously by other people. But his example was really what I would call clean. Do you know what I mean by that? A really clean demonstration of it. Excellent job. Excellent work. BMLSB69.
Yeah, what's cool about it is that he did it over the very black swan picture that we're talking about. The first one, the second one, the time that the weather wasn't cooperating, and the waves were higher. So, I mean, just keeping it on topic is key.
Well, it's key. I must admit, I agree. He's used it and even referenced it as, in quotes, Black Swan image. But you can tell just by the way he's phrasing stuff that he's kind of not indifferent to the argument. Obviously, he's aware of it, but by the same token, he's just like, well, a bit like Ranty in that regard. He's still getting out there and just having a look, and he's got his own things that he's investigating and intrigued by, regardless of where this movement of his picture leaves the argument. He's still going, well, yeah, great, but there's other things I can look into, and I'm just, like an investigative journalist almost. He's just intrigued by the things that he's encountering, and he's reporting on them. So good for him, and I'm keen that people do the same. Surprisingly, as I've mentioned, Ranty, he did the same thing. So the Black Swan argument, he obviously parroted it back to me in a way that I definitely knew and understood it. Then he started explaining something new that he was talking about, which was how, I can't exactly remember what it was now, I never presented it, but something about perspective and the way it was falling in line with some wind turbines he's got. But in other words, something that was off on a completely different line. In other words, the gears don't grind to a halt because we've destroyed the globe. The people who are still interested in the nature of reality, the most exciting bit of this subject for me, the fact that, wow, everything's up in the air now. There's so much to learn. The majority of the people who are out there with the camera are actually of that mindset. They're like, great, wonderful, yeah, but I already knew it wasn't a ball, and I still want to know how the world works. So I'm still going to be out there looking at what stuff does and how it does it, and more power to them. That's one of the biggest benefits of realising you've been lied to, and every answer that you've had up until now about the nature of existence isn't necessarily the way it is. Therefore, there's a world of possibility and a world of things that you can investigate of your own volition that can lead you to a better understanding about the world that you actually live in, as opposed to the one on paper based on geometry, whatever.
That's a good point, because now that the globe is dead, we can change the argument. What is the nature of our reality? It shouldn't be so confrontational. It should be investigatory, discovery. I like it.
Perhaps the only downside is the waves of people that come to this discovery of the nature of our reality. Hey, Paul, as those waves get more and more diluted, so to speak, if you imagine your average globe zealot, let's say one of them converted, well, how do we tend to deal with your average fundamentalist religious zealot who believes he's standing on a sphere Earth? Well, he'll do a cursory Google search and take the first result that he finds. Well, that's not exactly investigative journalism now, is it? That's like wiki parroting pretender clownism. Well, do you really want those people? Those are the kind of people that, if the paradigm completely changed, let's say 20 years from now for the sake of argument, and the new lie's been spun out, those are the type of people that would just parrot off whatever the establishment tell them at the top of a Google search. So, in many ways, you want those people on your side, just becoming wiki parroting pretender clowns for whatever the new paradigm is? Personally... No,
that's not what I was referencing. But you're going to have that in all subjects in life anyway, no matter what it is. The people in between what is real and from where they came to the real, or where they are in relationship to the real, with maybe some weird beliefs of their own that kind of puts them on the outside of reality. So, for example, we know touching a lit stove is going to burn your hand. So we teach our kids not to do it. The reality is, don't touch a stove when it's lit, because you're going to burn your hands. There's no escaping that reality. So someone could say, well, I could find a way to touch that stove and not burn my hands. I could touch the other side. Well, I don't want those crazy people. I just want the fact that you don't touch a lit stove because you don't want to burn your hands. So all the people in between, I could do without them, because they've got some other gimmick, going on, rather than just accepting the fact that fire is hot and I don't want to burn my hands. So the reality of our Earth is that we're not a sphere. The horizon isn't where it's supposed to be. Water finds its level, fluid dynamics. All the other arguments fit well with a non-spinning sphere. So we're not a sphere. We live on a flat Earth. It's a plane. Now, if they want to come in with some weird other things, that's a whole different argument.
Yeah, well, it's a cognitive location, the globe. So cognitively, you can convince yourself that you're standing on a spherical surface, but as you phrase it, there's no escaping the obvious and observable nature of Earth's flatness. as a picture of the salt flats appears on screen. You know, there's no escaping the nature of reality. It is obviously and observably flat, something that's conceded on both sides. The high priests of heliocentricity will tell you that stuff is flat whilst holding a beach ball, which simultaneously tells you that A, they're reifying the ground beneath their feet into the beach ball, and that B, when they say that stuff is flat, they're referring to the geometric horizon an ant would see if it was a few millimetres above the beach ball. A geometric physicality that they assert in terms of the actual reality of what we stand on. And none of the effects of standing on a spherical surface are actually experienced. In other words, you cannot escape from the obvious and observable nature of the flat earth we actually stand on.
Yeah, no denying it. I've got a definition for astronomical refraction from Andrew Thomas Young. Astronomical refraction is all the atmospheric refraction between the observer and some point outside the atmosphere. Any alarm bells going off?
Of course, but I'm waiting for you to highlight it.
I wanted that pause. Sorry. Well, yesterday, I think it was Brenda bringing in astronomical horizon as one of the many that they're going to go to. Well, if it's an astronomical horizon, it's talking about astronomical refraction then. Well, what's the definition here of the refraction if it's astronomical? Is all the atmospheric refraction between the observer and some point outside the atmosphere. So has no bearing on the black swan is what I'm saying.
Until you have that picture that we showed at the beginning of this pre-show. And then you've got a bit of a question and a quandary in terms of which refraction you're going to be applying. As I say, this is all mentally constructed in the eye of the person who chooses to believe they're on a sphere and reify the model. They're telling you it's a model, it's not hidden. It's something I tried to cover yesterday, I'm going to cover more and more, in terms of people thinking they've been lied to. Now, when we highlight their contradictions, within the doublespeak is the part that would be gone to were they to be challenged about it being a quote-unquote lie. They just go to the part of the doublespeak that says, no, this is just philosophy, a model, whichever word is most useful to serve the purpose of saying, no, you should have spotted this, like we've spotted it. So, those of you who feel wronged, unfortunately, you've not been wronged in the eye of the people who've wronged you, if you will, as messy as that sounds, because they'll just be able to highlight a part of their doublespeak that made it plain in the first instance. The best example of this is the word model. So everyone who comes here and argues about how their model is correct, it's like you don't understand what reification is. And the fact that you're using the word model means that they've got a get-out clause should you ever go to them upon realisation that the Earth is obviously and observably flat and say, you have lied to me. They'd say, no, I haven't. Philosophically speaking, a model is just a way of looking at the world. A way of conceptualising is what they'd say. So you conceptualise that into reality and physical... You stupid idiot. That's what you'd get. And then they'd tell you a new lie. That's how it works. That's how liars operate.
Yeah, that was good yesterday, that the model doesn't work with the black swan and the modus tollens, but that's all they've said. It's a model.
Yeah, we can argue all day about the model, and that was made explicitly clear at the beginning of the modus tollens example when it was formulated. So Quantum Eraser said, look, we're going to praise this within their paradigm. In other words, when Timmy Osman comes along and says, you're burning a straw man when you say we must have Earth geometry, you're like, what, burning the straw man that is the definition of your religion? Well, you can burn that as a straw man if you choose, but you're essentially undoing the logic that is your religion and its parameters. So yeah, you can claim that the modus tollens formulation and the logic therein is actually wrong, but that's your religion being defined in that there logic. Hello. Still checkmate.
Yep.
But that was an embarrassment. I tried to spare Tim for as long as I could and say, look, this isn't personal to you. A lot of people don't get the argument, knowing full well that he didn't get it. And rather than rubbing his nose in it, I tried to highlight, look, go away and understand it first, otherwise you'll be embarrassed. And then I took his argument apart in about 20 seconds, pointed out that I'd done so, and he still persisted. And then burnt a straw man. Well, flat Earth doesn't do X, Y, and Z. It's like, that's not the argument. The argument's based within the logic of a sphere and its geometry. And then he repeated the same straw man 3 times. It's like, you've got nothing more to offer. But it's just a shame it had to come to that, because it's nothing embarrassing to get to say I don't get this argument, unless you sit formulating it like QE did, or having it explained with great detail like I've had, then you're not necessarily going to get it straight away. And it's no embarrassment to either side of this argument if they don't understand how this obliterates the idea of having spherical geometry. If you don't get it, that's fine. You will. There's a countdown timer for both sides. We reckon it'll take between 12 and 18 months to actually have everybody understand it. But that's fine. But if you choose to demonstrate ignorance in regards to the argument and then choose to fight it or disregard it as stupid, then you're only going to bring that kind of level of stupidity on yourself. It's going to be an embarrassment for the person who does that.
Mm-hmm. And it's noticeable to the audience listening.
Well, that's what I'm glad it happened with our own side first, early on in the argument, while hardly anybody understood it, so we could check our own side. As much as Karen B got the brunt of it initially, and then a few others, it's like, well, she was... Cat's off to Karen B, because Arwen approached her, and she just said, look, I didn't really understand the argument. You're like, bloody hell, thank God, some just pure honesty. Great. That's all you need. So Karen B was almost forgotten about immediately, just because she had some sincerity about the fact that she was like, yeah, I didn't really get it. What's the big deal? And then justified it the way she justified it. So thanks to Arwen, kudos to Arwen for actually doing that, because it could have escalated, and it didn't. But she's just a perfect example, fortunately for her, really early on in the argument, where it's going to get forgotten about quickly and nobody will really care in the long run. But she could have braced against it. She could have gone, no, just another white swan, carried on with the same rhetoric, not understanding the argument, too proud to say. She wasn't like that. And in which case it would have been a total embarrassment for her. And anybody else who's done it along the path, I'm not going to name any more names, but the people who basically didn't get the argument and therefore poo-pooed it as just being, oh yeah, just another flat earth proof. Well, had they have persisted rather than us checking them on it, and like always, we get flack for checking them on their incorrect assertions. We get vilified for it. It's happened to me before, it'll happen again. But who cares? We've got to check our own side first, so it doesn't end up being a total embarrassment with us fighting against the globeheads and simultaneously having people on our own side, hijacking the argument and diluting the argument because they simply don't understand it. Well, that's no good. So fortunately, get to my point, we managed to check our own side first. And that means that when the globeheads come along thereafter, not understanding the argument, we can laugh at them. Right?
Yeah, well, I'll add a name to that, my name. I've misjudged so many things in my life because I didn't wait to hear all the facts, and I made a presumption or assumption. And then later, when the person had some grit to them, took time to say, no, you're still not getting it, let me explain. And then when I see someone fighting for a point that I think I already understand, I said, wait a minute, maybe I did get something wrong, because this person's real passionate about proving something and isn't taking my first statement of any value. So whether it's a family member or a business associate in the past, life has taught me that I do that mistake. It isn't just Karen B, it's all of us.
That's what Red Pill Philosophy essentially said on one of his streams that he actually put up a section of on YouTube. He basically said words to the effect of, the passion that they're fighting this argument with and the amount of time and effort and videography and all the rest of it that they've put into this, there must be more to it than I'm appreciating. I see that it's a flat earth proof, but I don't see how it's as strong as to require non-stop, constant talking about and endless videos. So I'll ask. So he did. He went to Anthony Riley, a sleeping warrior, subscribed today, and said, what's the beef? What's the big deal? I don't get it. Which is essentially the same sentiment that was echoed out on videos by our own side that got checked. He's done the same thing, but he's done it to Anthony rather than publish a video going, what's the big deal? But that's basically what he said to Anthony. What's the big deal? And Anthony's laid it out for him. He's gone, oh, so they need the geometric horizon. So once the pennies dropped, suddenly he's out there doing, now Red Pill Philosophy is out there doing, debates on his own channel, challenging people with it, pushing the argument because he knows there's no way out. Why wouldn't you use this argument? Once you get it, you're like, I can chop heads off left and right with this. It's aced.
Yeah, it's only growing. I contacted my good friend Wide Awake, who has a YouTube channel, does great shots over the water there in Florida, and said, "Why don't you be the first East Coast guy with a channel to get the black swan?" So hopefully he'll follow the instructions I sent. I said, set your camera to 1 foot, find some objects out there that we can measure from land, preferably 10 miles or further, and kind of told him what the black swan is. So hopefully he'll put something out soon.
Let's hope so. I think we'll get more and more and more. I'm going to ease off searching for doing the search constantly, because I've obviously got maybe 2 or 3 examples of black swans that were captured almost immediately after the argument broke. So I'm quite content with that.
Well, you remember how it was referred to as a white swan, not really a black swan? Okay. Well, no, it's a black swan, and we've got plenty of them in the past. We just go back to all the things we've ever talked about and seen visually. There are black swans that we just never connected because we never were trying to measure the horizon to the math of their sphere. Now we are. So even if none came out after today, we have plenty of material to go through to say, well, that's further back. Well, that's further back. So the understanding of spherical geometry is what's key here. It cannot be more than the observer's height in feet based on their math. So whether it's 5 feet or 1 foot, do their math. And if it's further out, you're not on the globe. End of story, checkmate. It's over.
Radio check.
Hey, QE.
Radio check.
Good morning.
You're up early?
Yeah, kids woke me up.
Yeah, I'm glad people are focusing on going through their footage and finding black swans and talking about the argument, as opposed to worrying too much about how the flip-flopping globe zealots have started to relinquish their religion. It's like, let them do that. Let them tell you how non-physical the horizon is. Just leave them to it. They'll hang themselves.
That's ironic that you would say that, your first statement about focusing, because I've been noticing more so now than ever, because they always did this. But now that their goose is cooked, what they do is they start diverting real quick. So if you could pull up that screenshot in Master B's.
Sure.
Tell me when you got it up.
The one that says "get it" underneath.
Yeah.
Stay focused. Yeah, I'll put it up on screen.
The missiles on the left-hand side are flat earthers, and the target is the globe Earth in the middle. But you see what happens is that the globe earthers employ some countermeasures. And instead of flat earthers focusing on the primary target, what do they target? The countermeasures. So flat earthers, focus on what you're doing, right? Don't let them run off tangents on counterclockwise and clockwise and their silly little fairy tale parroted arguments, right? Focus on the target. Made this slide about a month and a half ago.
Yep. Yeah, that's why.
Good.
Yeah, that's why I push tangents into their face.
Yeah, it's been happening a lot. When they do come on, it seems like they're sending out sacrificial lambs to test the waters, right? And they're getting jacked up quick. But I've noticed over the past maybe 3 days or so, they're starting to pull their little countermeasure routine. And flat earthers, they like to argue. They'll just go after those countermeasures, resulting in a draw or worse instead of going for the kill shot. Just go for the kill shot, okay? Thanks.
Yeah, we have it here. And sometimes I am moaning a little bit, I'll be honest. Sometimes I have to try and keep our own side in check because all those countermeasures get fired off and our own side wants to chase after them. Like, whoa, why are we talking about rotation suddenly? No. Let's not chase after the what is it, chaff? Is that what they call it?
Countermeasures.
Yeah, it's chaff a countermeasure. Have I got the right terminology? I don't want to say it if it's wrong.
I don't know I guess it's starting to get metaphors screwed up a little bit, but I suppose so. Yeah, instead of going for the wheat.
I'm thinking of a different word. I'm actually thinking of a word in terms of a thing that gets fired from the side of a jet that they use as a countermeasure. A countermeasure is like a category of things. Name something that actually gets fired off from a jet. What would the projectile?
Like a flare.
Go on.
Like a flare, those flare things that they shoot off.
Like flares and stuff. Do they call those chaff?
I thought so, but probably wrong. I'm sure I'll get shit for it in the comments.
I think they were referred to as chaff because the heat-seeking missiles now go after that instead of the jet exhaust.
Oh, okay. They might. I'm not saying they don't. I was never in the Air Force.
Neither was I. That's why I'm asking. But it's just when you've got something in the back of your brain that is the correct terminology. But like, is that the right? I do it after the show sometimes. I'll watch the after show, and you're just talking, right? You're not really exercising thought about every single word, which is a problem, really. People should on the show. Nevertheless, you're not thinking about everything you say. And then after the fact, you go, is that the right word? What does that word mean? And then you search it after the fact and go, yeah, it was the right word. Thank God.
Another thing, for people listening out there in the audience that's never been in Discord or never been on Hangouts, I find you can't, when you're in here, you don't hear everything. I find that I hear a lot more after when I listen to the shows, when I get a chance to listen to your, when you rerun the shows. But a lot of times when you're in a Hangout or here in Discord, you don't hear everything that's actually being said. You hear it on the show, but you don't hear everything in the Hangout. Just want to let you guys know that out there.
Yeah, it's just the way it is with the gates. If somebody's talking in Discord, what that effectively does is holds the Discord gate open. Well, my desk overrides Discord. Discord's not going to take control of the show. So it means that if you're someone else in your, your peers in Discord close the gate, then yeah, you're not going to hear anything coming back through it, so that there's not feedback. But that's nothing I can do about that. It's good because it prevents feedback. So yeah, it's a balance that Discord are prepared to wangle in, so there's no feedback, and I'm happy to have it that way. But it just means that if someone's babbling on like rumpusing in the Discord, you're never going to get to hear what's said. And if somebody has just tailed off the end of a sentence when someone in the Hangout starts talking, you're not going to hear the first half a second of that sentence. It's just the way it is because of the gates.
Yes.
And Nathan,
I'm not blaming you. It's just the way it is. I just want to let everyone know in the audience, and just in case, well, why didn't he say anything against that? Well, most likely because we didn't hear it.
Sure.
So just want to let you know.
Yeah, I got the difference between chaff and flares. Chaff is composed of millions of tiny aluminum or zinc-coated fibers stored on board the aircraft in tubes. When an aircraft is threatened by radar tracking missiles, chaff is ejected into the turbulent wake of the air behind the plane. Flares.
There you go.
In contrast, flares are used to distract heat-seeking missiles. Most are magnesium pellets ejected from tubes to ignite in the wake behind the aircraft. These flares burn at temperatures above 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, hotter than the jet engine nozzles or exhaust, to exhibit large amounts of infrared light.
I've remembered where I got it from as well now, why it's such a vague long ago memory. It's from playing on jet simulators when I was a very small kid. My folks ran a computer shop and they had all the latest games and all the rest of it. And I used to play flight simulators. And what chaff looks like is like instead of one thing going out and then a heat seeker chasing it, it's like a whole bunch of stuff that sort of flies out from the side of the jet in little tiny particulates that go, like lots of them all at once. It's from what it's described just then. They're obviously held in one tube. They fire them all out and they all just disperse. Chaff.
Right.
Yeah, cool.
Right. I like them better on submarines, right? Like Red October.
Oh, yeah.
He threw out all the... Yeah, I like those, man. The countermeasures, it's really cool.
I got a question about the Black Swan argument.
Well, I think Nathan's about to go live. You want to do it now?
No, you go ahead. We've got 3 minutes.
The whole concave earther people, it kind of puts them to bed too, doesn't it?
Yes. Concave is just the reverse. It's the exact same mathematics. An inversion of the same model.
Yeah, they're just inverted, but it puts them to bed too,
I didn't hear him.
It's saying it destroys concave. Black Swan.
How does it do that? Not to you, Nathan, to the gentleman.
They would need curvature as well. It's just they would need it to curve upwards. So if it's not,
Yeah, it would depend on their radius too. I can never get concave earthers. I don't get it. That maybe it's just me.
it's like Anthony's force of up. You know, that's kind of what they.
Where is that old Burke at?
Dealing with this dog. Almost made a full recovery.
Yeah.
He's been sending me videos. That dog has made almost... It looks like a new dog. It's amazing.
Yeah. I'm so happy for Anthony.
I'm happy for the dog. The dog just looks like out running around, happy as Larry.
Happy as Larry?
Yeah.
What the heck does that mean?
Happy as Larry.
That's like Bob's your uncle.
That Bob's your uncle. That's a funny one too. We got to talk about that. Oh, I know what I wanted to ask you before you go live.
Oh no.
You're not going live just yet, are you?
I was just about to. I said I got about 3 minutes. No, I've got about 10 seconds.
Oh, real quick, in Hangouts, what are your voice and speaker settings?
You having me on with 10 seconds?
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon, plus the join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion right here, right now, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Quantum Eraser, Paul Hall, Flatzoid and 10th Man, together with a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Has anybody bothered to hustle the people off mute in Discord? Oh yeah, somebody's already done it. Excellent. Just not very enthusiastic from the Discord server. Any signs of a physical geometric Earth curve edge?
No, we're still waiting.
Any signs at all of any Earth curvature?
Not from national parks.
Any evidence of axial rotation?
Well, we would feel it if there was.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
No.
What is the sun?
Good question.
No distance measurement to it, for sure.
Any scientific evidence of gravity? Anybody at all?
First has to be science.
They often assert it as being scientifically valid. So yes, given that they assert it as science, I would like scientific evidence of whatever gravity may be. Anybody? Jimbo says, scientific evidence of what? Precisely, Jimbo. Thank you very much for the super chat. Whatever they want it to be, you can think of it as a roast chicken if you so desire. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Nope.
Hey, Alwyn. Didn't see you there.
Hello.
Have you?
Good afternoon.
Nothing from Becky?
No.
You're going to ask about Becky Daly, are we?
Are you gonna ask her every day like a troll?
Nope.
What science did you do today, Becky?
Dr. Becky, I'll have you. Yeah. She's earned that doctor.
But no, they think they are leaving the science to the people doing the programming of the computers that tell them what to do. So they trust that their higher ups know what they're doing and have given them a proper program in order to basically assist in the field work as they see to the scientific process that they don't fully understand. This is probably what they really think.
Almost as good as independent variables, dependent variables, controls. Almost. Go on, whoever it was in Discord.
Yeah. Have you all ever looked more closely at the Mars, so-called Mars landscape, where they've literally mapped out the whole thing? And I definitely can see some aspects of the computer game thing of how they've literally CGI'd it, but it's really interesting. They've generated so much data, and like Arwin is saying, so there's so much data out there that all this scientists, quote unquote, believe is just phenomenal once you look at the detail of all the data they've fabricated.
It reminds me of
like a giant painting of data.
Well, talking of paintings, that reminds me of, I can't remember the name of the guy, but there's somebody who painted, I'm pretty sure it was Mars, through a telescope and drew all these rivers on it and all this shit. It turned out to be him seeing his own cataracts. He just drawn it on the light. Yeah, quite amusing. I'll have to look up who that guy was. Anyway, sorry, just a mildly amusing anecdote regarding painting what Mars is.
Yeah, that would be pretty funny. Was pretty funny, yeah. But I just wonder, like, they've got this whole pipeline somewhere of people fabricating this data, and I don't know. I mean, it is something intriguing. I know it's irrelevant to the argument, but still.
Still fascinating, though. As you say, the problem with anything that's come from that particular research institute is I don't believe a word they say anymore. Once you've found out that they're lying to you in one regard, I don't gather any information from them to assess anymore. So it might be the case that all of this imagery is, perfectly legit, and you could go and replicate it if you had enough money to do so and enough decent optical equipment to gather the data. But I don't really want to spend my time assessing whether or not something that from that place is lies or not first. Do you know what I mean? So it could be all real.
It becomes a big waste of time.
Say again, sorry.
Yeah, it does become a big waste of time because the last I really looked was some sort of like I was trying to compare the go fast footage with the NASA quote unquote sounding rocket footage, and so it sort of seems it's a kind of rocket that goes up really fast and goes high really fast. It's really small. The go fast rocket being the famous one, but once I saw with the NASA one, they have the sounding rocket go up, then they basically sort of like freeze the frame because you notice there's no more video artifacts for a certain period, and they claim that it's going from like 100 miles to 300 miles or something. Then once it drops again, then sort of like the artifacts start coming again. So it's like at that point I was just why bother looking at any more NASA stuff, right? And then looking at, let's say, the supposedly the 4K footage or the GoPro footage of astronauts in space on the space station, it's it just becomes tiring because you spend too much mental energy thinking about how they're faking it. So yeah, it gets a bit tiring and boring at that point.
Well, at that specific point, it leads me on to the next housekeeping question nicely. So you said on the ISS, so any evidence that you can have gas pressure without a container? And then I'll move on with my point about the ISS and the images. Anybody at all? So given that they claim that these images are coming from a sky vacuum, they're immediately bunk. Now, let's say for the sake of argument they weren't proven liars, and they said it's come from high altitude planes. I'd be all over it. I'd be looking at it all day. My journey into this, one of the things that flashed through my mind, one of those things that I did but didn't come to the subject, was I got maybe 2 or 3 PCs ago, computers ago. What I wanted was real-time footage of weather on like a desktop screensaver. That was my ambition. I'm like, one of the first things I'll do. And I discussed this with Mark Sargent because it's one of the things he talked about, because he was building a server and he wanted to put, like, he said it was when the Apple phone came out. It was probably about the same sort of time for me. And you've got this picture of the blue marble on the Apple, the first phone, the Apple iPhone. And you're like, well, I want real-time weather footage. Why wouldn't we? We've got plenty of stuff out in space. Surely one of them would be able to give the real-time data. And I couldn't find it. All I found was endless duplicates of the same composite blue marble. And at the time, it didn't ring alarm bells, but it's certainly one of the things that flashed through my mind when I heard Matt Powerland say the words flat earth without ridicule attached. So it's one of those that you go, there isn't this footage available. But if they were punting it as what it potentially is, potentially because they're claiming it's taken from a sky vacuum, definitely not real, violates the second law of thermodynamics, so I disregard the pictures, but they might be really useful. It might be that if they weren't lying about where they came from and they said they were high altitude footage, like I say, I'd be studying them to the nth degree, but I just don't feel it's worthy of my time to first dilute out the fact that if I ever presented them, I've got to say, bearing in mind these have come from a fake place they're claiming, why would I want to give that disclaimer with anything I produce after studying it? I just wouldn't. So, there we go.
Yeah, they need to push the ISS and astronauts and all that. So that's why they have to say everything's from the ISS. They're not going to sort of dilute the message. Because these are all marketing, branding tactics. They could easily say XYZ from this and that, but they'll leave that to the page 2 to page 5 of those space magazines or space websites. But they need to, up front and center is ISS.
Right, they've got to account for that light in the sky. What becomes a very real problem if it's unaccounted for becomes a strength in their argument. Of course space is real. Look, you can actually see something in space. There's the light in the sky going past. So it's their strongest argument to have this false narrative attached to that light in the form of the ISS. Now, obviously, the people on our side that do this, I'm not pouring scorn on anybody who does this. Fine, good for you. But endlessly analysing the green screening, the harnesses, all the stuff that's clearly done on camera on a set, all of that stuff gets pulled apart, but it doesn't address the actual link between somebody who's Joe Normal looking up at the sky and going, well, I can see that the ISS is real, because their association is that light in the sky is the set production that they present you on TV. So the only way to undo that is say, where is the light claimed to be? Comes back to the same point about me invalidating their photos claimed to be taken from a sky vacuum. They say that the set production that you see on TV is taking place in a sky vacuum. the light in the sky is still the light in the sky. But the sky vacuum that the stage production's taking, that's definitely bullshit. So what you're left with is still a light in the sky that goes past. That's now unaccounted for, because their account of it is debunked on account of the fact that the medium they claim to be in when they're travelling in that light, called the ISS, when you point at the sky, isn't a narrative that can possibly exist in reality because it violates natural law. So their account for the ISS with their stage production is immediately void. Well, what's the light in the sky? Good question. Why is the sky blue? Good question. What's the sun? Good question. Well, they're the sources for all your information in regards to those exact things. How it's all set up with a distant sun and an atmosphere and the light dispersing through it gives you your blue sky. Well, once you take away a distant sky outside of our atmosphere at these astronomical distances based on presuppositions of R values, that's a good segue. Any evidence of the R value?
I wanted to talk about Mr. Blue Sky.
Who's Mr. Blue Sky?
You don't know?
No?
What?
It's old school, man. ELO.
Electric Light Orchestra.
Electric Light Orchestra, baby. Get some.
Yeah, I thought
Way
it
ahead of
rang
their
a vague
time.
bell.
What?
Say again?
What does this have
When you
to
said
do with
Mr. Blue
R?
Sky, I said who's Mr. Blue Sky, but in the back of my mind, when I was selling hi-fi, there would have been a customer that would have come in with ELO records and played them to me. So I have vaguely heard of Mr. Blue Sky.
Mr. Blue Sky, please tell us why. Please tell us why you had to hide away for so long. So long. Come on, man.
What I need is one of
Jeez.
those cards, like on a button on my little box, that cuts all audio, puts we are experiencing technical difficulties, so that can never ever happen again.
And by the way, Robin Trower wasn't a girl, for goodness sakes. You guys got to get your fucking music acumen up to a certain standard,
Right.
right?
And just as
Yours
we're on,
standard?
I'll get you there.
look, man, as we're on up-to-date current events and pop trivia, the chick in the crying game's also a man.
Sounds like a boomer wants us back on his musical train.
Hey, you didn't-
Oh.
Are we all up to date now with the 1980s music and video?
I think everyone will
1980s,
get there
man.
by September.
ELO 70s.
Was it 70s?
That's
ELO?
all right. ELO 70s, man.
Really?
Hey,
I'm sure
that's
they
possibly
spanned into the 80s, surely.
You missed it.
Oh, we missed a
We
pun.
can move on.
We were trying to
I
figure
said-
out timings for
I
pop
said-
trivia. Sorry,
I
10th
said
man.
you'll all get there by September.
Ah, boom, boom. Let's all reminisce a bit more about ELO. No, any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No, but Sweet Talking Woman was, I'll tell you what, that song, it's one of the greatest songs ever right there, man.
Marshmallows
sorry.
over fire.
Does it have an proof for the molten iron core in it?
John must have had an early breakfast today.
You can think of it as hell.
I had early coffee, man. I'm smoking.
That'll do it. What's up, guys?
Hey, 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 hey. So JLB was giving hints of changing his philosophy to flat earther. Did anybody else pick up on that?
What? Really?
Well, asking us if I was to argue this as a flat earther. I'm paraphrasing, of course. JLB's never taken the position of what was your archetypical flat earther guy touting azimuthal equidistant projection, domes, ice walls. You know, that's his caricature of a flat earther,
Yes,
which he didn't want to be, and still doesn't, and I don't either, despite the fact the Earth being obviously and observably flat. Now he's obviously now been told in no uncertain terms about the untenable geometric values that the Earth, spherical Earth, requires. Hopefully he'll run with it. He was keen to hear it as a globe Earth skeptic, which he's always been. I don't know, a lot of people don't know who JLB is. There was a lot of people in the comments and in the chat that were like, who is this guy? JLB's been around talking about this subject longer than I have. So when I was first...
You wouldn't know that.
You wouldn't. Yeah, well, maybe not. But nevertheless, he was interviewing Eric DeBay, Jaronism, Dave Murphy, a whole bunch of people, long before anybody who are currently listening and watching this show were even here. He was interviewing them, and as a very much a ball earth skeptic, as he phrases it. I'll give you an example of something that he did. He was he was the first person to expose Cavendish as complete horseshit, and he made a video using that guy, that Spanish guy with the messed up teeth, laughing his head off, and he took that and put subtitles underneath about how Cavendish balls in a shed give you all the values of the weights of the lights in the sky, and he's laughing his head off. Well, Tiger Dan, the guy he mentioned when he was on yesterday, took that, mirrored it, and it lent quite a lot of weight to JLB's channel, but then he got tarred with this idea of flat earther, and Tiger Dan, the guy who mirrored it, specifically was, using or creating his own azimuthal equidistant projection based on flights. So JLB wanted none of that, didn't want to be associated with the ideas of flat earthism when there was clear issues with the flights at the time, back in 2015, 16, I forget, there or thereabouts. But yeah, he's had the Ball Earth Skeptic Roundtable, all of which are available on his website, where he's discussed this subject in great depth and detail with people like Jaron, like Eric, loads of them. The list goes on and on and on. So while people were sort of I'm not expecting anybody to kowtow to JLB, but by the same token, there is a certain amount of respect I will give him, given the amount of people he's exposed to the subject and the nonsense of flat Earth. I've sided with him, albeit not vocally in massive way. But on a lot of the things that he's challenged flat earthers on and their nonsense that they assert, I've actually sided with him. Now, he may not know that, but, when he was like, oh, you actually have very similar opinions. Well, yeah, we do. That's why I promote him and say, check him out, because there are a lot of things on our own side. I'm sure Quantum Eraser will agree with me that we punt that's crap. And when I say we, I mean flat earthers. If we're all going to be bundled in the same bag, unfortunately, we've got to start poking the people that are tarred with the same brush we are and saying, no, stop punting this nonsense. And he was one of them, JLB that is. He just didn't want to attribute the term flat earther, even though, as far as I am concerned, the earth is obviously and observably flat.
Can I be bad cop?
Whiskers, eh?
You can, but Arwin's
Can I be
itching to
bad
get a few
cop?
words in. You go ahead, Arwin, and then afterwards, if you would.
All I wanted to say is just Whiskers, eh? Yeah, I've been trying to poke around with that, but yeah, when you call a disker, they don't really like it. Apparently, they consider that to be a swear word, bannable offense.
Oh, when you call a flat earther who has a projection of a model that's come from a sphere Earth to begin with, you call them a disker. They don't like that.
But because of the specific orientation, the map-based literalism and the disk, usually sun and moon literal positionists as well, with domes. Pretty much the real baseline visuals that are being handed out by a lot of activists. But yeah, I call them diskers because it's very specific, the model.
Politically, it's a hard one for me because obviously you've got people like Mark Sargent that I've discussed this with, and he has a reasonable justification for his entry-level exposure to the subject with a model that allows somebody who's a beginner to conceptualize something different. Now, I know from experience that when people come to the subject, they want you to give them answers where there may not be any. Now, Mark's prepared to do that for the sake of reprogramming people cognitively. It's not necessarily to say that he would put his stamp of approval on that map, but he does use it as a tool, and that's how he justifies it. Now, I am prepared to agree to disagree with Mark and not start some war over it, despite the fact that I absolutely poo-poo the idea and notion of models, which is what that is. A globe-based model that projects out from the centre as a projection known as azimuthal equidistant projection. So that model isn't my model, and I don't put my stamp on it at all. Doesn't mean to say it's not a useful tool. I can understand the arguments for it. But there are a lot of people who will take that, this is the downside to Mark doing that, and suddenly think that is the world we live in, and they reify it and hold it close to their heart. And then it gets burnt as a straw man by the opposition. And why wouldn't they? In my view, that's its purpose. That's why we've got it. That's why it's on the maps, or on the flags, you know, the UN flag, and that's why it's slipped into movies. That's my opinion. That's just speculation. But they hand you this model so they can burn it.
Hey Nathan, can I
Mark
make
says,
a very silly analogy?
You can,
It's
but QE's,
basically like
QE's waiting to
they're
make a point,
forcing-
Arwin. You can, but QE's waiting to make a point also. Can you wait till after?
Aw.
If it's quick, go on, Arwin.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very quick. Yeah, so it's like if you leave your wife for a newer girl, there's a great likelihood your old wife is gonna be complaining and whining to your head about the new girl. So you just have to make a clean break and let the old relation just go away, and don't start dipping into new models right away.
Ah, with models. Okay, you got there in the end. Perfect. Yes, I understand the analogy. Okay, QE, go ahead. Sorry.
Number 1, Mark's ace. No problem. Back to JLB. Listen, I was peeling apart that Cavendish nonsense before JLB got out of high school. Number 2, I ran into JLB when I first got out here and challenged that knucklehead immediately. He was spewing nonsense. And if anyone, you know what kind of nonsense he's going for from yesterday's performance and his 2014 arguments. The guy's a clown. That's all he is. Come on, come back on here and I'll prove it some more.
He's not a clown.
Thanks.
I don't agree. I just think he's detached himself from the subject while we've progressed in the subject, so he's picking it back up where he's left off from it, and the arguments have moved on. Well, you know, that will be to his detriment, and if you know, he might just continue to ignore it. That's how a lot of people are, in which case he'll remain ignorant in this subject. But I don't think that's the case, given that he does periodically join and challenge us based on his understanding. I can't really ask any more than that.
It's ambiguous nonsense.
I didn't say he was right.
I mean, yeah, but come on. If you don't understand, these are simple subjects. I'm not even talking about flat Earth versus globe Earth. I'm just talking about second grade coherency. He didn't understand what we were talking about yesterday. It's preposterous. I'm sorry.
What specifically? With the star rotation? You only mentioned it briefly.
No, not the star rotation with the flights. He couldn't understand the concept of level flight and the ground falling away from you.
No, I don't disagree. I described to him and he conceptualized the buildings falling away as you look at them from the runway, and then obviously that's going to apply to the planes, but he justified it by saying, well, you're talking in contradictions because it would have to maintain it. In other words, he begs the question and forces it upon us, which is just that's the kind of mentality that we deal with, is it not? When people are programmed in a certain way. He's just done it with a slightly more subtle projection onto us about how we were begging the question of a sphere and what it would need to do, while he justifies the fact that they are actually flying level. So he's simultaneously giving a concession whilst accusing us of having a contradiction in our explanation for how it would fall away. So, double speaking is perhaps something to justify his own apprehensions, because I still think he's on the ball.
Yeah, and then he is. And then when his nonsense gets challenged, he pulls out the snowflake victim card. Why are you so angry? Why are you second grade playground nonsense? Grow the hell up. My work. Come back in here.
I liked Timmy Clown.
We'll go over 1 + 1 = 2 for you for 30 minutes, okay?
Timmy Clown was brilliant. I could have kissed him. He was ace. So he comes in, does the usual, your argument's stupid. Right, what's their argument? Doesn't understand it, can't repeat it. Gets it half repeated by Spurs of all people. Interrupts it and then protests that he knew it already when he's interrupted it, and then can't repeat it a second time. And then launches into the argument. You're like, this is great. This is like the textbook. This is like that little clip that you want to trim out and go, this is how they behave. Poo-poo the argument, say it's stupid, get demonstrated to not understand the argument, have the argument and explain to them in a vague way that they interrupt, get into actually arguing about the argument, and then, because they don't understand it, get to a point where they have to relinquish their own religion. I think the point for him was to say, your assertion of Earth geometry is a straw man. we don't assert Earth geometry. When have we ever asserted Earth geometry? In other words, they are literally hanging themselves.
Yep. You go in for the kill quick. I just want to let everyone know. See, I like to expose them for not knowing what atmospheric refraction is, because I've heard refraction for years. Refraction, right? I like to really rub their noses in it, right? Take a little longer, prolonged approach to it. But you go right for the kill shot quick, because as soon as they say that horizon's refracted, it's over.
So did Spurs.
Kudos.
So did Spurs. There was like a bit of discourse between you and Timmy, I think. And Spurs interrupts and like, is the horizon physical or non-physical? I'm like, boom! Well done.
Spurs cut me off with that because I was coming in with that. Like I was getting tired of this crap, and then like a minute before I was gonna do it, Spurs came in. I was like, oh shit, look at Spurs! Awesome.
Spurs is all over this, man. I hand out, kudos to you, Spurs. Don't let them divert. Hammer on them. Wear a sharp suit and ace them. Thanks.
Did we only cover that in the pre-show? The chaff?
We could cover it again if you want.
I think it's worth covering again. I'll give it a mild introduction, then you can say. So I'm going to put a picture up on screen. So what this represents is how the argument is currently being fought on their side. So this is obviously visual representation of the main target being the globe and lots of countermeasures being launched. Go ahead, QE, if you want to carry on.
Yeah, I had this concept about a month and a half ago. It was before the Black Swan argument, because the ballers, they have no recourse but to divert. We've known this for years, but it's becoming more pronounced over the past couple weeks, and specifically to the Black Swan. So I've been telling everybody, especially in Discord, the flat earthers, just to be aware, right? Because they have no argument. The sacrificial lambs that they do send in, right? Once they get compromised, which is relatively quickly, within 30 seconds, if the flat earthers are sharp, they'll start to divert, right? And bring out nonsensical buffoonery, the flimsy arguments they have, counterclockwise, clockwise nonsense, more of the same of that. But what happens is flat earthers lose their focus and start focusing on their countermeasures. So Betty helped me make up this concept and put it in a slide form that, see, the flat earth missiles are on the left-hand side. The focus of your attention should be on the primary target, which is the globe Earth. But what most flat earthers fall into is they target all the countermeasures. Don't do that. Let them go off in their own little tangent and focus right on the prize. Hope everyone gets it. Thanks.
300 people watching live. Check it out. My second channel, Nathan Oakley, which you probably heard mention me saying this was discussed in the pre-show. So typically the home of the pre-show and after show is actually my second channel. And it's probably about 80 subscribers short of 5,000 subscribers, which, considering it's an ancillary channel, is pretty amazing. I haven't really kept up to the subscribers on that channel. It's just grown massively. Wonderful. But yeah, the people who typically watch it are more focused because they watch for a lot longer on that channel, which is great. The stats are fantastic in terms of the amount of time people actually spend watching it. But often, like the conversation with JLB yesterday, he joined for the last 2 or 3 minutes of the live show, and then there was another hour, maybe even more, afterwards in the after show, and that goes out on my second channel. So there is a link below. Check it out. Hopefully I can get it to 5,000 subscribers by the end of the day. If there's 80 people in the live stream that aren't actually subscribed to Nathan Oakley channel, check it out. Go and subscribe. Enjoy the Uncut and after show, which comes out a few hours after the live show's finished. But yeah, just to bring this back on track. So exactly, if you take Tim as an example yesterday, his diversionary tactic, again, on the after show, subscribe to Nathan Oakley channel, was to highlight failures or perceived failures in the flat earth assertions. And the Black Swan argument is based in the parameters of globe geometry. So it starts with, if the Earth is a sphere with the radius of 3959 miles, then every distance to horizon measurement must be no more than 1.225 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. That's just standard globe geometry. There's nothing special about that statement. It's the tenets of your religion, if you're to call it a straw man. But the way that Tim gets around that is say, what about flat Earth geometry? You know what that is? A big fat countermeasure. Because the argument is focused on the sphere and the globe and the geometry thereof. So focusing on some different argument or perceived argument or some of his observations, another countermeasure he fired off. If you start arguing, Arwin is your ear, when he said star rotation and you went, star rotation, it's like, that's just a countermeasure. He wants you to chase. So well put, and I like the visuals. Shout out to Betty.
Yeah, like I was saying, you go right for the kill shot. What you don't get into explaining the 5 effects of refraction. I just like to expose them, but you don't. As soon as they say refracted horizon, they're done. And you're right for doing it. I'm giving you kudos. You're right. I just like to explain it and rub their noses in it. Let everyone know that they don't even know what atmospheric refraction is.
You have a tangent.
Maybe explain that, Flatsoid. How the physical geometry actually works when you're drawing a tangent line, compared to their donkey dick that they've now got bent around something. Or don't.
Sorry, it's freezing up here.
And it's very cream here.
Did you hear what I just said about the effects of refraction?
Yes, you like to take them through and rub their nose in the fact that there are 5 effects of refraction that they don't actually know. So yesterday, JLB said something to the effect of, wouldn't the negligible refraction nullify a lot of their arguments? Very interested. And you said, well, how interested are you? What are the 5 effects? And he went, why are you so angry? Or something like that.
Yeah, right. Right. Exactly. Just like, yeah, that's what they do when they get caught. Right? It's not only ballers, but I don't know what is he anyway?
What, in terms of his affiliation to the shape of the Earth, if you want to phrase it that way?
Yes, I'm sorry.
He doesn't declare. I think geocentrist would probably be what I would describe him as. Sphere Earther.
Fair enough.
That's the closest I can come to. But that said, the reification fallacy has been detailed quite specifically by John Le Bon. The map is not the terrain. We don't live on a model. He gets all of that. So he's made that quite explicit. So if you were to try and actually tie him to a model, he's got a whole joke about it, which I've never looked into because I'm not actually paying to his website. But nonetheless, he's got the Le Bon model, and I know he doesn't believe in reification. He understands the fallacy. So I don't know what the joke is there. Go on.
You have to pay for that.
Well, I just see it as a joke.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, you have to pay for it, but I just see that as a joke. If you're chasing models, you're prepared to give him money, and you want to see what the Le Bon model is, then I just see that as he's probably taking the piss out of people. But I'm not going to actually pay to find out what Le Bon. I couldn't give a crap. But I'll joke about it, and when he's asking us how something should work in a model, my first question, well, how does it work in your model? Well, you've got to pay for that, was his response.
Yep, got to pay for that. Why? Because you got to pay the salary of his fleet of slobber nurses.
Well, he's probably just got to eat like me. Smash the super chat, people.
Well, Nathan, you said it the other day. X marks the spot on their Muppet Vision. Remember?
Yeah, if you go to Mick West's calculator, scroll down to the little diagram in Muppet Vision. Muppet Vision being you seeing the side of your own head on the left-hand side of his model. He's got a little eyeball or whatever. That's you, the side of your own head being seen. Not that we view the world in that way. Muppet Vision. But yeah, you've got a little X on the geometric edge of the physical sphere, they're claiming with that model. And what does it say next to that X, 10th man?
Geometric horizon.
Yeah, it says horizon.
What's funny is that whether it's McWest model or Andrew Thomas Young's drawings, they've got the sphere in such a shape in that drawing that it doesn't match reality anyway. Because if you're standing at the seashore and you're looking straight out, it doesn't match what this side angle view Muppet Vision shows whatsoever. This is where I think Flatside was going to bring in his tangent line, but he got too cold or something. And then they got the refracted horizon being loomed up, which they can't use anymore, from way further down. So none of this matches anything. The whole thing is charade.
Yeah, you can't use geometric-based refraction values with its R glaring and sticking out like a sore thumb at the moment if you don't have a geometric horizon. The whole thing collapses at this point.
It's just a clever way of subliminally tricking people. But if you show that picture, the ones we're talking about with the Muppet Vision drawings, normie, average Joe, Jane, you're going to say, that's not the way the world presents itself to me. I don't see anything falling away.
Right, and your plane's certainly not descending. Just going to do a quick shout out to Vinny P. Here comes some money for food. God bless you, Nathan and panel. God bless you, Vinny. Keeping meat in my stomach. Thank you very much indeed. No, I really do appreciate your support. Thank you very much indeed. Speaking of support, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of the people who are channel members as Lions. So a massive shout out to FE Diplomat, Anaconda Malt Liquor 17, Daz Studio 68, who's also one of my Patreons, Burn Fat Till My Stomach Is As Flat As the Earth, also one of my Patreons, Rhett Priestley, is it Contrapolitan? I've got to get a bigger text on my screen. Windrider, another Patreon. All people, another one of my Patreons, and Eagle Plane and Anchor, who I believe is also one of my Patreons. So massive shout out to all the people who are channel members as Lions. Really do appreciate your support.
Oh, QE Live today. Early church councils with Paula, Bible literalist, man. It's gonna be really good. This is one of those things that Bible haters always brought up, and people that don't know what they're talking about have brought up. It says, "Oh, they changed the Bible." So it's gonna be a good show, man. I need to brush up on it too. So QE Live today on the Quantum Eraser channel, 1 p.m. U.S. Central, 7 p.m. UK. Be here, B Sphere. Thanks.
Shout out to Good Servant for hitting the super chat. So, just as a mild update as well to anybody who might have been interested, JLB asked yesterday for some documentation regarding negligible refraction, and I said, I'll get it from Sleeping Warrior. I don't keep documentation for anything. Nevertheless, he got back in touch and said, I'm actually not at home at the moment, so I haven't got my hands on it. I've got about 5 papers, he said. So I'll get those to JLB when I get them from Sleeping Warrior. I've seen them cited. I never have asked to actually be given any of these things. I'll read them when they're on screen or sent to me, but I don't keep them. I'll just read them and then disregard the tab. That's terrible, really, isn't it? I'm so lazy. I never cite anything. That said, just for anybody who might be critical in the comments, you don't need to. The citation isn't your argument. Your argument's your argument. Citations just back your argument. But I'd prefer to not actually require any citations. Just have the argument tucked up nice and tight. Half the time I can't even put my finger on the Black Swan photo. I'm like, has anyone got it? Yeah, it's in Master B. So I should really have it, right? I don't. It's terrible.
Isn't it interesting how quiet it is since the Black Swan and their callers' first attempt to attack it, and Black Swan kicked them down the road like a tin can. And now, look how nice the show's been. No ballers, no wild accusations. They don't know how to get out of Checkmate.
Yeah, they're the Walking Dead, man. Most of them just don't know it yet.
Glad you got a proper live show plugin, you typically wait till the after show and are like, I can't plug my show. I'm like, well, this goes out directly after your live show. But you've got a proper plugin, so check out Quantum Eraser channel. I was going to say there's a whole nice little network now, off the back of everybody who's a ballbuster, me included, where I tend to put on the end of the outros for the recent videos I've done like a ballbusters outro, so everyone gets a little plug. So the Adam Meakin, Sleeping Warrior, 10th Man, not that you're a videographer, Chocolate saying same thing applies, but Ranty, Dr. John D, yourself, Paula I've mentioned already, but you're doing a show with her tonight on Quantum Eraser at 7 PM UK time, 1 PM Central Standard. Be here or be sphere, Quantum Eraser channel. But that's another excellent show. I watch it. And Arwin, same thing applies. So I'm leaving you till last so you can actually go on from here, Arwin. But Arwin has a daily show on his channel, ARWIJN, called The Flat Earth Early Bird. And he's saying daily for, it's got to be coming up for a couple of years now, right, Arwin? Well, yes, I have had the show for a long time. It is my favorite thing to do in the morning. I like to talk.
I'm thinking. I'm thinking of starting a channel with some videos now. It's going to be a departure, though. It's going to be cooking videos.
Cooking,
Yeah.
ball-tarred gooses.
You're going to ruin the pun. It's coming. Wait for it.
No, I'm serious. I love to cook, but like a recipe, showing people how to make meals instead of going out and spending a ton of money on stupid stuff. I've always cooked, barbecued mostly outside is the best. And heck, the globe died with Black Swan. All the thrill is gone. I got to do something that's more, that's real passionate with me, and that's food.
Don't really understand what the super chat means. I'll read it anyway. Eric La says, doesn't the distance from the observation have to be recalculated when you zoom in, though? Now, I think I'm going to choose to paraphrase it the way I want to answer it, because I don't fully understand what you're asking. But the angular size, this is where I had Zanuck on my very shouty, sweary after party show. So check it out. Again, on the second channel. Subscribe today, Nathan Oakley. Get me up to 5,000. is the angular size, otherwise known as apparent size, is not accounted for in the geometric physicality that is the Earth curve calculation. It's dealing in actual sizes. So, for example, a 100-foot lighthouse, if you're stood next to it, like literally at the bottom of it, to see the top of the lighthouse, you've got to literally lift your head up, tilt your head towards the sky to see the top of the lighthouse. And how tall is that lighthouse that you're craning your neck to look at the top of? Well, it's a 100-foot lighthouse. Now you look at the same lighthouse from 30 miles away. Well, it's 3 pixels. It's teeny tiny, and you're definitely not having to crane your neck to look at it. You're having to look at it through optical equipment with greater zoom length to even see it. So the angular size, otherwise known as apparent size, has massively reduced, while the actual size remains the same. How big is that 3 pixels? Well, in actual size, it's still 100 feet. Now, if you take it from 30 miles to 30,000 miles, in the Earth curve calculator, it's not disappeared from view because it's too small to see in angular apparent size. It's still 100 feet. So, in their maths, nothing ever disappears because it's too small. They only deal in physical actual sizes. So currently, the whole circuit of globeheads is telling us all about these apparent, redundant term, all horizons are apparent horizons. Well, does their maths deal in apparent? No, it deals in geometry, the physicality they're claiming of a sphere Earth. So this argument is their linchpin. It's checkmate. You can't start referring to our arguments about how not actual things in the distance are, because this boat isn't the same size as the sun. Obviously, it's just very small in the distance far away zoomed in, as opposed to if you stood next to it on the dock. But the feet and inches value, utilised in the Earth curve calculations, never changes. Very useful if you're going to use the effect of angular size reduction at distance and call it Earth curve, which is precisely what they've done. Hijacked perspective. So, do you need to recalculate for zoom? You need to account for the apparent nature of everything. And they're currently claiming the apparent nature is something that they absolutely do always and have always dealt with, when they're actually using geometric maths. Of the physical sphere, they claim blocks things, and the physical edge they claim bends as you raise in altitude till it forms a circle that they'll call the blue marble. So their maths deals in physical and actual. The reality of the nature with what we get on pictures is things get smaller, angular size. That's what we call apparent sizes. Well, yeah, they don't deal with that. So I hope that answers your question, Eric Lara. If it's something totally different, you'll have to let me know, but that's what I read into your question. Thanks for the super chat. This silence is where Arwen would be talking if he hadn't buggered off for a smoke or whatever he's done.
Hey, there's a new song on the airwaves.
Stay tuned.
Oh, please.
Technical difficulties. Where's the mute buttons?
Please, no.
No. I'm not singing it.
Not the mushroom one.
Not
No,
Utes
it's in
rap
Master
with me
B.
swearing.
No.
No, it's in Master B. No.
Original battle. Can I play it? Will it get me a copyright strike?
No.
You sure?
Yeah.
That didn't sound sure.
In 2020, we took a little trip with Quantum Eraser in the Flat Earth Discord ship. We looked at the horizon and we made a measurement, and we caught the bloody globers in the Black Swan argument. We fired our guns and the globers kept it coming. There wasn't as many as it was a while ago. We fired once more and the globers took to running back to Gem Panda server to crawl into a hole. Now Quantum Eraser, he lacked confidence, but he put on a snazzy show for the audience. The Baltards flee when QB they do see the General Patton Swan roll suits him to a T. We fired our guns and the globers kept it coming. There wasn't as many as it was a while ago. We fired once more and the globers took to running back to Gem Panda server to crawl into a hole. Yeah, they ran through the briars and they ran through the brambles and they ran through the bushes where a rabbit couldn't go. They ran so fast that the hounds couldn't catch them back to Gem Panda server to crawl into a hole. We fired our guns and the globers kept it coming. It wasn't as many as it was a while ago. We fired once more and the globers took to running back to Gem Panda server to crawl into a hole. Hey, Baltard, it's not about the oil rig shape. Say refraction one more time, Q's mouth will go agape. Quantum Eraser has smashed the go-to bits. If you want to see a curve, ask a girl to show her tits. Fired our guns and the globers kept it coming. There wasn't as many as it was a while ago. Fired once more and the globers took to running back to Gem Panda server to crawl into a hole. He's not angry, he's just a bit rat-trad. Alpha males drive the Baltards mad. Get off the globe and you'll get back your mind. You can count on QE for a kick in your behind. We fired our guns and the globers kept it coming. It wasn't as many as it was a while ago. Fired once more and the globers took to running back to Gem Panda server to crawl into a hole. Sound off! Black Swan! Dismissed.
Woohoo! That was ace. Just going to read out a super chat from Retro Bill. It says, smash the super chat, share the show, and tune in to Quantum Eraser show later today. That's 1 p.m. Central Standard, 7 p.m. UK, with special guest Paula, Bible literalist. Be here or be sphere, open brackets. This has been an unsolicited announcement, close brackets. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat and unsolicited announcement on behalf of Quantum Eraser Channel. Be here or be sphere, 7 p.m. UK, 1 p.m. Central Standard. Excellent song.
Well,
love it.
If the Black Swan doesn't convert them, this song will make them come to Flat Earth just so they don't hear it again.
Or at least dig out their old banjo.
It's on the Billboard 100.
Billboard Flat Earth 100. I don't think Flat Earth has got 100 songs yet. But that's definitely a contestant. If you send that off, if you can get somebody to put, or even just trim it out from this debate, although it's got me nodding my head along in the middle, which is a bit embarrassing. But if someone can actually trim it out as a song with a background video to go with it, Mark Sargent will publish it. He's got a full playlist with pure Flat Earth music, so he'll publish it and stick it in the playlist.
Somebody did a remix version. They called it EDM, electronic dance music.
Somebody's got to cut that out.
No.
They called it EDM, electronic dance music. Like you've never heard of this notion of. Someone's got to cut that out. EDM.
Yeah, I didn't know what to make of it. You know, I'm a boomer, right? I knew techno stuff, back in the day, but this one was a strange one, man. I'll put it in Master B if you want to listen to it, but it's strange.
Cut to the clip of a grizzled old prospector going, and they said it was something called rock and roll.
There it is, man.
EDM.
Right, I won't play all of this. I might play it all in the after show. I'll just play a few bits, a little bit.
2, 3, 4.
Sound off!
Black Swan. Doo-doo.
Okay, yeah, we'll have it in the after show.
Oh my gosh!
Very good.
You're killing me.
It's not like the original.
Well, somebody give me a class on.
Somebody give you
a
what?
class on EDM. What the heck is that?
Dance music.
The EDM
Dance
Sea Sparrow
music.
missile.
Yeah, dance music. What you just call dance music? Subcategorized about 1,000 bazillion times. EDM would be what you'd call it in the 80s. When it was just a few people with synthesizers and a repetitive 4/4 beat. But EDM, it is just like a grizzled old prospector going, yeah, they said something about rock and roll,
nonsense.
this crazy old thing that these kids are listening to.
That's a bunch of baloney, man. I was in
baloney.
clubs in the 80s.
Hey,
That's a load of old codswallop.
Huey, do you know who Giorgio Moroder is?
Wait a second. I was in Berlin in the 80s doing all the clubs, right? I never heard no nonsense like that. Now, we heard some techno stuff back then, but nothing like that.
Techno is EDM. Just a subcategory. Yeah. Can't believe we're having this conversation. I feel like I'm talking to my dad.
I better shut up.
This is awful. What a way to round out the show.
It's too late, man. I'm done.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave it
over.
on. Yeah, it is. I'm going to leave the live show on this cringe horrible note. So with that, I'll say if you are watching this on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow with some EDM. If you're watching this live, however, this is where we bid you farewell. A massive, huge, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Of course, a massive thank you to today's... Excuse me, I'm still chuckling from that. Massive thank you to today's Discord and G Plus panels for making this live show possible. As I say, stay tuned if you're watching on the premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
call an EDM outro.
Amazing. We go from ELO to EDM.
ELO had a little techno, right? They were before their time.
Yeah, but do you know who Giorgio Moroder is since you were in the Berlin dance clubs?
Giorgio Moroder?
Yep.
Never heard him.
Ah, look him up.
I ain't looking him up. Tell me.
You tell us to look it up. It's your turn to look it up.
I don't tell you to look it up. I spoon feed you guys citations. Rub your feet. Friggin' cook your hot chocolate. You look it up and tell me.
I remember back in the day when I asked you a question. Go look it up. I mean, it was Dunning-Kruger. I've never heard of Dunning-Kruger. You said, go look it up.
You should have said to him, I can't, I'm a boomer.
Hey, you put a cork in that chocolate.
Hey, Pops.
Oh, I get it.
Couldn't think fast enough on my feet. I was trying to get a story together, a narrative together where someone justifies not knowing what Dunning-Kruger is, but claiming how smart they are anyway, only to go and look up what Dunning-Kruger means. I just couldn't think of a narrative to inject that story into quick enough.
Oh, gosh. That was a fun show.
I'm not dumb. I just don't know what Dunning-Kruger means. I'm really smart. I do really know what it means, actually.
It's the sequel to Dumb and Dumber. It's Dunning-Kruger, probably.
You know what Dunning-Kruger is now, though, right?
I looked it up and I decided to forget all about it.
Dunning-Kruger ran a test where they basically get people to estimate how well they'll do in a test. So, you know, they give them the test, they come out, and then the people who generally came out went, yeah, aced it, no worries, fantastic, I'm so smart. Typically did worse than the ones that came out and were like, oh, I don't know, I think I could have probably studied a bit harder, maybe. In other words, the Dunning-Kruger effect is the effect of not realising how stupid you actually are.
That's right. Reminds me of some of the Baltard's talking points.
Well, that Trust the Legend. Yeah, that's a good example of Dunning-Kruger. You go, you're guilty of an ad hominem fallacy. No, I haven't attacked your argument. I've attacked you, the man. I'm attacking at the man. You know, that's Dunning-Kruger.
That was classic, the way you just did that. That was so funny.
You know, definitely not a Latin speaker. My argument's not ad hominem. My argument's at the man. Just brilliant.
Oh, gosh.
Gives whole new meaning to pounding away at the C4 fire.
Yeah, I like that one now. I understand what it means. It does make me laugh. Very calm. That's the other thing I noticed in Spurs. When he's arguing, he's so specifically with this argument, because I've seen him put into a corner plenty of times. But with this argument, it doesn't seem to faze him at all what the rebuttal's coming his way, because he knows that he's definitely got his eyes on the prize. He doesn't distract with the chaff. He doesn't go after the countermeasures. Just comes straight back on track. He argues it beautifully, actually. Spurs, I've got, you know, Spurs is a weird one, because, you know, I went out to do the Isle of Man stuff, did a load of measurements with him. He's a hard-working guy, very enthusiastic. but sometimes he'll get the wrong end of the stick and it just drives you insane. But when he does get the right end of the stick, he's like lethal. So I'll qualify that better. So when we're arguing about what science is and asking people in arguments for independent and dependent variables, the basis for the request is that somebody has asserted that their proof, whatever they may talk about, is science. So you go, well, it's science. Oh, right. So it's on the stipulation that the person you're arguing with says, the whole body of science proves you're on a globe. Oh, right. What's your independent variable and dependent variable? Now, if you understand the premise of what science and the scientific method is, you would understand the reason why you're asking for those two things, independent and dependent variable. If you don't quite understand the argument, someone comes along and says, well, the horizon's not actually behind the platforms, and you go, as a reply, what's your independent variable? Now, that's completely non sequitur. But if you've heard somebody arguing and asking for independent variables of somebody when they've made a claim and you don't fully understand the argument, you might inadvertently start asking somebody who hasn't made a claim of science for their independent variable. Now, we get that at the moment. Plenty of people have asked me in the comments, what's your independent variable for the Black Swan argument? You're like, oh, God, you don't understand what science is. Sod off. But that was Spurs. Jeez. So Spurs was that guy. He's asking people for, asking people for independent variables when they haven't made a claim of science yet. Now, that made me cringe.
He was.
He's like a kid with a chainsaw. The chainsaw's definitely lethal, the argument with science. But he isn't. He's a kid with a chainsaw. In this instance, nah. He's not a kid with a chainsaw. He's a fully blacked up ninja, completely invisible, holding a whole load of ninja stars that he's just picking his targets off with without them even realising it. He's just a totally different person with this argument.
He is. He does a really good job. I've heard him. Yep. You're right.
Plus the arrogance was just off the
Argument
scale.
is fun.
Go on, Chocolate. Sorry.
No, I was just saying this because this argument is fun. It's fun to make them dance because for years and years and years we heard one thing. Now it's completely different. To me, that's dancing, which is also conceding. So yeah, this is great. I'm all down with it.
It's funny because a lot of them they're not on the same sheet of music just yet. A lot of them are still, it's physical edge. They haven't got the memo.
No,
retard club.
It's weird, isn't it? Because the ones who haven't got the memo fall into the trap immediately, like Timmy. So he was led by, who was it that was leading? Was it you, 10th man?
I can't recall.
Someone was leading him. I think it was Spurs. It might have been Spurs.
Maybe it was Spurs.
Yeah, it was. And he pretty much immediately gets him to the point where he's like, the thing that's blocking the buildings in all of my observations, that's physical. It's like, you've won. Now, Spurs didn't instantly recognise it and declare victory. He carried on arguing. Minor, because I was just, that's the end of the argument then. Physical, boom. It's not. Here's the Black Swan image. Bye-bye argument. And then he's like, when have we ever claimed we use geometry? Was the end of that argument. It's like the beginning, you've had Spurs bring you to declare that it's a physical obstruction. Based on the geometry, you're declaring physical obstruction. Now you're saying at the end of the argument, when have we ever claimed geometry? It's just brilliant.
It's like he went down the whole path in that one session.
Yeah, it was epic.
He started off with refractive effects, and then that led to of course the horizon is geometrical or physical, and then that led to that's a straw man. It was like he just went down the path that all of them are going down now. So it was hilarious.
All the other arguments are good ones, like the 9 housekeeping questions, but there's several moves you have to make first. The Black Swan with the most Tolans, the first move is checkmate position.
Yeah, that's literally skipping the board completely and just checkmate. Like, we already got the picture, we already got the observations, and they're all over the place. And now that the argument has been placed upon it, there's nothing you can do. Nothing you can do. It's beautiful. As a matter of fact, yesterday I just heard an interview. Sorry, go ahead.
I said they moved their pawn and you stabbed
Yeah, man. It's game over, man. They're everywhere, man. Game over.
Game over. Why don't you put her in charge?
So I was listening to a podcast with Paul on the plane and Mitchell from Australia, and Mitchell from Australia gets it, man. Like I already knew he did, but he actually got on with Paul purposely to try to explain to flat earthers and Globers the reasoning why people are getting this argument so mixed up as far as the actual Black Swan part of the argument and then the argument itself. So, Mitchell got it. So it's just good to see people understanding it and very simply. Like when I go on Facebook, and the other day I went on and there was a post with 170 comments or something like that. Just random people just posting it, just the symbol of the swan. I was just loving it. It was like the bat symbol. It's like just post this everywhere. This is the destruction of the globe. Like it's a beautiful thing. I'll shut up now.
No. Did you see? What's the guy's name? Hold on, just 1 second. I mirrored one of his videos. Brandon Toy
Was it?
came to me.
Oh,
Brandon Toy did a mock reenactment of QE giving the modus tollens argument in the format that was snipped out. He added, he did it with a female voice, presumably his wife or someone he knows, but said in a very kind of documentary style way. When he watches the video, have you seen that?
yeah, it was funny. The guy wearing all the NASA shirts, and then by the end he throws the NASA shirt out. He bought a flat Earth debate shirt. It was great.
But it's what I was going to say was that particular bit that he trimmed out, essentially just the argument explained with a little bit of paraphrasing. He gives the radius of the Earth, shows a picture of it, explains how the geometric horizon works, gives the maths, and then shows him crying, and then shows him with his camera crying again, and so on. Well, it kind of, you imagine for Neo in the Matrix when he first takes the pill, and then they're trying to locate him, and he touches the mirror, and the goop from the mirror sort of crawls over him until it reaches his mouth, and then he gets sucked into the reality that is the real world, if you will. So he's sucked out of the Matrix. Well, it's kind of a bit like that with this argument. In other words, when you first come across it, unless you just disregard it and go whatever because you base it all on the picture rather than the argument, if you ignore those people, the people who see the argument and don't quite get it is a bit like Neo with the goop crawling over him. He doesn't know what's coming yet. But once you actually have comprehension of the argument, you're sort of sucked into this position where you go, whoa, it's like everything becomes clear now. I can just demolish this argument, like Neo at the end of the movie when he's like just puts his hand up and the bullets stop. It's just like, oh right, all of these arguments just get brushed over really easily. It doesn't matter what they say to me.
Like
Spurs
when Morpheus tells him, he tells Morpheus, "Are you telling me that I can dodge bullets?" Morpheus is like, "No, Neo. What I'm saying is, when you're ready, you won't have to." That's exactly where we're at right now. I like it.
Exactly, and Spurs is in that place. So, but the only thing is, he's sort of not recognised the fact that everyone around him's still very much locked into the Matrix. So he's been through the process, he's got the information, gathered it, and is now using it to devastating effect. He's Neo stopping bullets. But he's turning around while he's stopping bullets in the Matrix going, can't everyone stop bullets? No, Spurs, no, not everyone can stop the bullets. You can. You're the one at the moment, but there will be more.
When I told him the other day, I'm glad you're getting it, and he came back like 10 minutes later, like, chocolate. What do you mean? Like people not getting it? Like no, Spurs. That's the whole problem we're having. Most of the bowlers don't understand it, and even flat earthers don't understand it. So yeah, people aren't getting it.
That kind of
more and more people are.
That kind of innocence is what's so special about Spurs, because in a way he's really quite innocent, isn't he?
Yeah, I like Spurs. He's not saying that, there's no such thing as gas pressure.
Yeah, let's pretend that never happened.
I don't think
never
he's feeling their pain anymore.
He's totally relaxed. That's where this conversation kind of started. He's arguing it from such a relaxed standpoint. Like Neo, when he turns around and puts his hand up, he's not in any way slightly concerned that he's going to get shot by those bullets anymore. The bullets aren't real. So what's he got to be concerned about? And Spurs is no different. It's like, there's never going to be a point where you're going to justify a non-physical horizon, because that's the end of the argument. And anywhere we go from here on in will either involve you declaring that you've got this physical geometric horizon that you don't have, or claiming the one that we see is non-physical. Both are a win for Spurs, so he's more than happy to just slap him around all day with it. Good for him.
Well, I think it's come back to bite them, right? All these pictures of the globe from the medium that doesn't exist, outer space. So here they are showing us, here's Earth. Look how round it is. Look, here's another picture of Earth, 1972 version. Oh, here's another one from the Himawari satellite. Oh, okay. So you're telling me this is a physical planet, Earth. Well, what's the radius? 3959. Oh, and where would the horizon be? Well, it depends on your observer height. Well, how about at 1 foot? Oh, 1.22, rounded off 1.23 miles. All right, let's check it out. Uh-oh.
Nah, that was back in the day. Today that doesn't happen. Today we've never seen the geometric horizon. Never measured it, or apparently have a way to measure it, but can't see it. So I don't know how useful that is. So yeah, they're kind of lost.
Checkmate.
Spurs does it so methodical, right? And people are calling him names. They're over talking him, and it's just like rolling off a black swan's back. That's what he does it really well. I like it.
Yeah, they're countermeasures that are thrown at him, basically, aren't they? Ad hominem, insult, personal attack, followed by new argument that's not related to the Black Swan argument, followed by a claim that you don't have a justification in your model. All countermeasures. Spurs just knows where he's going. He knows what the argument is, and no one's getting away from it. This is the Black Plague. It was really appropriate the way you phrased it in that bit that I've now snipped out and stuck on the end of about half a dozen videos. Well, I'd like to introduce you to your Black Plague, the Black Swan. That's what it is. And the amount of people that say they hate this argument, whenever it's mentioned, everybody goes nuts. And you're like, yeah, wicked.
Speaking of the Matrix, this is when he holds out the two different color pills. With the Black Swan, they're going to realize, uh-oh. Everyone gets the Black Swan, as long as you're not one of these fundies.
Yeah, like that Sitcom owner guy. I went and rewatched his video, as epilepsy-inducing as it was, that first video, and I'm now 99% certain, given that he's basically confirmed this, that's like him not believing the evidence of his own eyes and moving the camera away. Because why would you, if you were actually trying to achieve a Black Swan, why would you suddenly move the camera away the instant you saw it? Like within a few frames. You wouldn't. You'd try and get your camera really steady. But he's not a flat earther, or he wasn't. At the very least, he was on the fence. So he's seen it, and literally in the verbalization he's got on the video, he's like, this isn't possible! And that's what he's done with his camera. It's really telling. It's just such a shame that video is epilepsy-inducing, because it's so telling. The kind of story that it tells is a guy looking for white swans to take the piss out of us with, in a very low-key way, and then seeing a black swan, moving his camera away and going, no way, because he knows the argument. Before he saw a black swan for himself, he knew the argument. Presumably, that's why I say on the fence, realised the argument was strong, but he was in your second category that you described yesterday, 10th Man. The guy that says, okay, well, I'm not going to take it on the strength of one picture. I'll go and look for myself. He was that guy. Not a zealot. Hasn't gone, no. It must be a globe. He's gone, I'll go out with my camera. There you go, white swan, fools. Ha ha ha. And then he goes, shit! And moves the camera away. And what's he seen for those few frames? Well, he saw a black swan. And it took me about 25 minutes trying to pause the video on it on my iPad to actually capture proper screen capture where it wasn't distorted, fuzzy, moving. And, you know, he only got enough frames for his brain to register, this ain't possible. This is geometrically impossible. You know the argument. And all that went through his mind in the flash of that camera moving back down to the sand at the crucial moment. Just cool. Very cool.
I love it when he breaks into song. Just random songs.
That video was like EDM to me.
But you can imagine going, I wonder if this argument will actually convert anybody. Will there be people who are on the fence that just needed to go out and do it for themselves, see a geometric impossibility with their own eyes, and then they go, my God, the Earth is not a sphere. And there's your example. It's not the best videography. It's not the best camera. It's not the best language. It's got him talking over himself. It's absolutely horrendous. But none of that matters. It's that moment where he sees a black swan and moves the camera down. That was the bit for me that got me calling you guys up and going, look at this. Not the black swan itself. It wasn't that particularly visually great. Not the videography. That was horrendous. Not the audio overlay. That was absolutely horrendous. But just that moment where he moves the camera down at that pinnacle moment where he's captured something that, as far as he's concerned, is a geometric impossibility that doesn't happen. Or he wants to see for himself to know it does. Either way, he sees it and goes, fuck. And has that oh fuck moment. And we got to see that. And that for me was very, very special.
Well, the epiphany that people will have once they understand the modus tollens, of course, the argument itself. And then the analogy is nice to kind of conceptualize it. But the modus tollens argument, to me, is going to convert a lot of people, because the average person is told that when you're at the seashore and you look out, say on a very clear day, and you see a horizon line where the sky seems to meet the ocean there, we are conditioned to believe that's the beginning edge of the sphere, and anything past that is curving away. That's what we're conditioned all our life to believe. Modus tollens says the Earth has geography. Based on that geography, you know where that curving away should start at any given observer height. The minute that resonates, and that thing is not at 1.23 miles, but it's 20, 30 miles out, based on your vision on the day, all game over. It looks flat.
What are you saying? You've never experienced a sunset at 1.2 miles from 1 foot observer height? I mean, that's what we're talking about, right? Geometrical
exactly.
rises at 1.2, so the sun should be setting a mile away from me.
Yeah,
at 1 foot observer height, and that's never happened.
You keep that as in case they want to argue. You keep that one for that one.
Oh yeah, I got that. No problem.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
Just pop that on screen.
I'm hearing people debate on gravity still, and they're debating on ISS, and we had this talk earlier. It's like, forget all that. Checkmate them right now. Get it done. If the globe is not a globe, all that doesn't make any sense anyway. They need gravity because they say it's a globe spinning in space.
Yeah, that's what kind of annoyed me yesterday. With
You know what I haven't heard in the past couple weeks is Polaris argument with the angles, with the sextant. Hey, ballers. Can't hold two mutually exclusive positions at the same time. You see, your little refracted horizon pummels that sextant into the incoherent oblivion. Are you getting it? Ha!
Yeah, shout out to 10th Man. He's been saying that for about 2 weeks. You're normally not up when he says it. I'm not knocking you, QE. It's just, yeah, you're absolutely
No,
right.
QE knows because he and I have talked privately on it.
Oh, fair enough. I've got the picture of the. Oh, it was in the pre-show, not in the main. Maybe it wasn't in the main show. I can't remember. This is a representation of the sun. Location of apparent sunset. Approximate 1.2 mile location of a geometric sunset. And also, when you just can't find that pesky geometric horizon you need. All together now. It's game over, man! Game over!
Hey, put that. It's in Master B. Somebody just made it. Somebody just made it. It's in Master B. Put that up.
I have.
Yeah, that's
you
Bev
did?
from Emma UK.
Game over, man. It is. It's Checkmate. This is game over geometric Earth curve assertion. There is no more asserting Earth is a sphere. It's based on geometry that doesn't work anymore. It's the end of the argument for the globe.
Black Swan.
4 more
I
hours.
think one of the reasons on the flat Earth side that people aren't getting it is they forget that, you know, it started out everybody thought it was flat, and then they come in and said it was a globe. Like, they're forgetting that part, that there's an assertion on the table.
Yeah, but we didn't need to concern ourselves too much with them denying the tenets of their own religion. That is in essence a concession. It's normally done as a distraction. It's another carefully moulded countermeasure. When have we ever claimed that Earth's a sphere? That's what they're saying. And people suddenly focus on it. Well, you used to say it. No, don't worry about whether or not they used to say it. That's the concession. Or to put it another way, oh, so you don't claim Earth is a sphere based on the geometry. Welcome to Flat Earth. Parrot it back to them with a slight rephrasing when they say, as Timmy did, that's a straw man. We don't claim Earth has a geometric horizon. Oh, so you don't claim Earth has spherical geometry as laid down by the heliocentric sphere Earth model. Welcome to Flat Earth.
Yeah, that's pretty sad. That's just a sad route that they have to go. That literally saying their geometric horizon is a straw man. Like, we don't believe. Guys, you guys love math, right? Math is reality. Well, here's the math. Your math. It destroys your model. With that reality is not cool now, right? You don't like that.
If you think about it from a point of view of a cartoonist, 2014/15, when people first started coming to this argument, or when I first started coming to this argument, you've got the globe heads holding up a piece of paper with the words globe geometry written on it and a load of diagrams. And they're holding it with angry faces, shoving it in our faces, going, don't you understand geometry? And shoving it in our faces. That's 2015. Fast forward to 2020, and the flat earthers are holding up that exact same piece of paper with angry faces, going, don't you understand geometry?
Isn't it beautiful, man?
Yeah,
that's why it's been so quiet today.
Nobody wants their ass handed to on this subject. The only people who are stupid enough to wander in are people like Timmy, who in their arrogance just go, it's a stupid argument. Don't want to... That's Dunning-Kruger. Don't recognise your own ignorance of the argument and just declare it stupidity only to have your ass handed to you in about 20 seconds flat.
Yeah, carrying his briefcase of his dumbass pictures that he's been hanging on to for about 18 months. That's all he's got. And his little counterclockwise, clockwise nonsense that he got off JLB.
We should have a meme of two chess players playing chess, and the Glober is all confident that this thing's going to last about 4 hours, but he's got all the moves. And the flat earther Black Swan swoops in and does one move. Game over. What? How'd you kill me so quick?
Well, the better analogy would be that on the chessboard, all of the pawns are black swans, and they're also white swans, and they're seemingly the least important piece on the board, right? Till one little black swan puts their king in check, and then another black swan puts it in checkmate, and then suddenly, black swans are very important pieces, and they were there all the time. No one realised how important and powerful they were, these little black swans.
A good analogy.
Yeah. I don't play chess, so you're better at it.
Yeah, my dad's obsessed with it. He plays on chess.com, and it's set out like a competition. You get ranked, and he just wants to get higher and higher in the rankings on chess.com. So since he's retired, got slightly obsessed with chess.
It's easy to get obsessed with that game.
Yeah, and depending on how your brain's wired, some people are just naturally good at it. So I quite like watching kids be arrogant chess players. I just love it. You know, some cocky guy that just thinks he's all that, and there's some like 8-year-old comes on and wipes the floor with him. It doesn't say anything the whole time.
That's a good analogy for flat Earth.
Why? The Globers didn't have any chess pieces. They didn't have a board. It was just a mirage.
But in terms of our knowledge of the world, we are metaphorically equivalent to an 8-year-old, full of wonder, don't have the answers, don't know why the sky's blue, can't tell you what the shape of the world is in terms of the layout. I can't give you any of that information. I'm just like a curious 8-year-old child. But it doesn't mean I can't wipe the floor with somebody who thinks he's absolutely academically my superior and knows all about his heliocentric reification model. Doesn't mean I can't wipe the floor with him, with virtually no education. I was trained as a performing artist. I can juggle. I'm literally a clown. But it means I can still wipe the floor with these muppets who think they're extremely educated. The clown and his juggling wipes the floor with fundamentalist religious zealots who feel they're educated in a model which we don't live on. It's just as simple as that. So yeah, metaphorically, we don't have the answers. Doesn't mean we can't win. You don't need to give up a just so story to defeat their bullshit.
So going forward, the baller wants to talk about some other peripheral matter. Is it worth it, or do we just go to the black swan and say, look, we'll answer your peripheral matter, but let's make sure that we're on the same playing field. Is the Earth flat, stationary, or is it a globe? If it's a globe, it's got to have this, and that. It doesn't. So we know black swan is a ball killer.
Let's see how it goes, 10th man. I mean, the only reason you're talking about this black swan image is because you're ignoring all of the other images that clearly show it's a sphere.
No, I'm not talking about images. I'm talking about all the other arguments like gravity and the things that we spend hours and hours going back and forth with these people. Coriolis, those things. I don't even want to talk about those things, because if the world is not a globe, who cares? Those things only matter for a globe.
We need to do a flat Earth proof show and just rehash the importance of each argument. Because for me, there's a definite top 3 arguments. Hey, RQ, are you around? Disappeared.
I don't see him.
For me, there's the top 3 arguments at the moment as they stand. Number 1, by some margin, is the black swan argument. It's top of the pile. Formerly top of the pile, down 1 at number 2, is gas pressure without a container. That was my best argument for this. Now it's my second best argument after the black swan. Number 3 is Coriolis effect.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. I was going to say number 3 is Coriolis effect.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I interrupted.
Maybe you asked me to go ahead again.
Yeah. Sorry. Sorry. Yeah.
I'm done, actually. That was it. Top three. I'll just recite the top three. So, number 1, black swan. Number 2, gas pressure without a container. Number 3, Coriolis effect. With those three arguments, you can debunk Earth having any curvature, Earth being in a sky vacuum, outer space, and Earth spinning. With those three things. So that's number 1,
Yes, sir.
2, and 3 in order of strength, in my opinion.
Now it's they're not strengths. They not. Oh my god.
I think you heard a bit of your own feedback. No one was talking over you. It might have been an external distraction as opposed to an internal one, maybe. We'll get QE back shortly, hopefully.
Yeah, radio check.
Yep. Hello.
Yeah, yep. It's not that one argument's stronger than the other. They're different categories. Right? So I call it the Trinity. Small t.
Yeah, I agree with you in a way. But in terms of what I'd lead with, so maybe not strength, but just order that I'd use them in. If I was to start this with a random stranger, I'd start explaining it with the black swan in terms of debunking curvature first, because the assertion starts and ends with the geometry of a sphere Earth. That's the overall assertion. Therefore, top of the pile is debunking that assertion, debunking the geometry. So you've immediately debunked Earth as a sphere with this black swan argument. Now, debunking the pictures that have come from a sky vacuum that's not possible by way of a violation of the second law of thermodynamics debunks all of the pictures of the sphere Earth from space. Well, doesn't necessarily debunk Earth as a sphere. So I wouldn't necessarily put that top of the pile, although I did, because most people will hang their hat on people going out to the sky vacuum and taking pictures of Earth as a sphere. So that was the starting point, but now we don't even get NASA arguments. We just get geometric arguments based on ground level photography. And this debunks that. So I would put it at the top of the pile, even though you correctly identified none of them are stronger than the other. Gas pressure without a container is watertight, couldn't be stronger. So you can't say, well, black swan's stronger. Well, it's a totally different subject.
Yeah, those
You're
are
correct.
fantastic in the way.
I'd lead out with the black swan. Yep.
Once you've debunked it being a sphere in a sky vacuum, the icing on the cake is say, oh, well, the assertion that we're spinning is debunked by this as well. The claim that we're spinning leaves you with a Coriolis effect as they claim. We don't have one. Earth not spinning.
Yep, this is the trifecta.
I'd have to disagree a little bit. I think that the reason that the black swan's so strong is all their arguments begin, if the Earth is a sphere, well, blah, blah, blah. But it immediately knocks it out. There's no if the Earth is a sphere anymore.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. When have they ever claimed Earth's a sphere? That's a straw man.
It was a model.
It's them. They are the straw man, and they're burning.
Yeah, they are. That's right, Owen. They're their own straw man in that instance with Tim Osman yesterday. That's how comical it gets. They can only tighten the noose as they start arguing.
See, I was kind of on the fence when I first heard that argument, and like 5 minutes later, I about like stiffened out and freaked out because it was like it became plain then.
Yeah, you got to that point where Neo's got the goop all over him, and you go, "Whoa, holy moly!" Like
So you were
like
on the
somebody hit me in
fence.
the face.
Oh, now I gotta.
Wait, you said you were on the fence, and in 5 minutes after this argument, you realized? Is that what you said? Or did I hear you wrong?
Well, yeah, I was playing through all their ifs, and but the ifs went away right then. It was like there was no if. It's not, and like it about knocked me out. It was strong.
Yeah, that's the sentiment of Itzik Carmona and his messages to me. Exactly. So you go from, but essentially the second guy described by 10th Man on yesterday's show. The guy is skeptical but wants to kind of think about it for himself more. Then you see the argument, you get the clarity on how it can no longer be physical geometric, and there's no more ifs left. So where they had a draw and they could argue, and you could just about have a tenable belief based on an R value with the slightly looming non-standard refraction high in holographic projections of this lighthouse, Maccord Lighthouse, from behind the reified Earth curve edge at 140 feet between you and it, you know, all in actual sizes. Well, once you get rid of that geometry, there is no if Earth's a sphere. You're exactly correct. So it washes away any, well, it could be. No, it can't. The physical edge is no longer a physical edge. It's not a sphere. End of argument. So you suddenly in a, that's what I was trying to get at in the pre-show when I was saying Spurs is really relaxed about it. He's not worried that there might be an if statement that comes, followed by the words "Earth is a sphere," that are going to stump him. There's never going to be an instance of that once you understand this argument. So it means you suddenly breathe out and relax.
You realize we're coming with the "if the Earth is a sphere" statement, which follows with logical consistency, right? That's what I think has messed them up, because all this time they've been presupposing. So that's why their arguments will always be like, well, if the Earth is a sphere, we see this, we see that. I'm like, okay, no problem. 2020, if the Earth is a sphere, we're going to have to see this geometrical horizon, 1.2 miles, and we don't. Game over.
Yeah, at which point their response, when have we ever claimed Earth was a geometric sphere? That's their rebuttal. No shit. Amazing, isn't it? Dig that hole deeper, Fundy. Yeah, you've never claimed the Earth was a sphere. Welcome to Flat Earth.
Well, Rumpus got schooled by, he can't say looming anymore now.
At this point,
damn it, I
all the
wish I
people
could
that's
draw
arguing.
better. I got a real good cartoon idea in my head. Or it's like a single frame picture with maybe some text in there. And that is, you have a black swan, and it holds in its beak, it holds a torch. And the black swan at first gauge seems to be surrounded by an army of people. But when you look closer, all the people that are surrounding it are straw man. It's a straw man army, and the front one says, "You're surrounded." How about that?
I like it.
I like it.
But right?
Go ahead and actualize it.
Yeah, but I'm such a shitty sketcher. It's just, I'm not a cartoonist.
I want to think of a way of being able to cartoon the horizon. So on screen now I got a horizon, right? How can I turn that into like a caricature with a mouth and a smiley face and a speech bubble saying, "You ain't seen me"?
If it was physical, you could.
Hey, John, whenever you start talking, it's really low. It's hard to hear you, sir.
Oh, sorry, I'm on a cell phone. I was about to say, if the horizon was physical, you could do all that stuff with it.
What stuff?
Put a speech bubble on it and...
Oh, right. Yeah, I could give it a postcode. I see what you mean.
But earlier when I was talking about, I was the one that called in on the Ball Busters where it was first released and said that you know, like it's like starching out a MMA fighter. The only thing I can compare it to is when I pulled some jet line between the steps at my house, and my dad tripped over it at Christmas, and I found out there wasn't a Santa. It's it's way above that.
Yeah, this is the destruction of Santa Claus, but the adult version. I get what you mean. Because the globe is the adult version of Santa Claus, to be honest.
Yeah,
Just realize the
behavior
ballers
is
are not here.
It's not very adult, unfortunately.
The best proof we have is that ballers are not here.
No, we're in
I
the
think
after show.
run
I
into
the
a-
funniest thing.
Don't speak too
If I
soon.
may, can I say something because I don't think it's exactly like Santa Claus. It's not Santa Claus for adults, really. I think that the whole space idea is much more directed at teenagers, really. That, getting them interested in mathematics and all that and developing minds and school and shit. And like, oh, there's more, there's progress. It's all towards a good. I think it was originally designed much more directed at teenagers, not necessarily adults. It's kind of a miracle it even still works on adults.
It's fantasy.
Yeah, but when did all those adults start learning this shit? They weren't adults when they learned it, right? Most people who believe they live on a magical spinning ball thought, they learned that when they were kids, right? So that's the difference, I think.
Well,
It's aimed for the kids, but to stretch out into their adult lives. Santa, that's just aimed. Oh, when the kid's old enough, we'll just tell them it's not real.
right.
Well, they skipped that part with the globe.
That's exactly.
But just look at
That's
when
exactly
people
why I
get
love. Sorry, Arwen. That's why I love the gas pressure without a container argument, because just as early as yesterday, when I was walking, I was like, "Hey, you ever heard of the flat Earth?" To one of the guys that I work with, and he was like, "Flat Earth? I heard of it." I was like, "Yeah. Have you ever thought about gas pressure existing without containment?" And he was like, "What?" That's the fastest thing and I left him on that. It's the fastest thing you can do.
Yeah. I flat smacked someone with that. Guy doing the detailing on my car, who's getting the dents out, like paintless dent removal. And he asked what I did. I told him. He was like, "Oh, right, well, how would you explain it to somebody?" And I just literally looked up at the sky and I went, "Do you reckon that's a vacuum?" And I saw the look come across his face. And you're like, yeah. And it was when the argument was relatively new. It wasn't as nuanced as it is now. Nuanced, focused, specific, whatever. Anyway, it was as quick as that. Like you say, you can just see somebody's cogs turning when you say that to them. I'm like, holy shit, sky vacuum.
Yeah. Well, the whole sky vacuum revelation, it took a long time even for me to really figure out what that is, That's why the ballers first step towards, but what about the gradient? And yeah, it's pretty much an exploration process to even figure out what is going on and what cannot be going on and all that. But if you start out just slapping somebody in the face with, gas pressure without a container, how does that work? They're just going to be their minds are going to be blown. But that doesn't mean that they're
Unless you don't preface it with flat Earth
right there on the
first,
spot.
they'll answer for you.
What?
Unless what?
Well, if you don't preface it with flat Earth and you just, I'm sorry, am I talking over someone?
No, you're good.
Well, yeah, I was saying if you don't preface it with flat Earth and you just ask someone, gas pressure, can you have that without containment? They'll go, no, I don't think so. Like, that's it right there.
Well, unless they heard the Glober story, unless they are into space storytelling, and then they might have caught up on that little machination about how the gravity is supposed to push it towards the Earth, and that kind of nonsense, without any technical real explanation. So it all depends on what sources they dip into for their information, where they like to dig. Did you catch any of that?
Yeah, no, we got it.
Okay.
I think you're right. There's levels of levels of understanding by different people, and some people don't know the gravity argument, so they'll say, "Wow, you're right. You can't have gas pressure without a container." Then others would say, "Yeah, but that's gravity holding it in," and that's when you'll say, "What's gravity?" And it's over.
No, that's just the beginning.
No, with them it'd be over. With
Then
the
you have to
trolls,
get through every step. see
No,
them.
no,
all
don't
get
treat
confused.
don't treat the normal guy who just uses it without understanding it as a troll like Zanuck who goes 4 hours on it.
No, of course, but if you really tell somebody the technicals for the first time, they're gonna have, or a lot of them are gonna have a natural defensive response. So they will basically try to respond in a way that'll kind of kill the argument. So that,
True.
and then you have to keep on pushing or decide like, yeah, this person just really doesn't want to know. He's not ready for this. And then
True.
you walk away.
You got to read them, of course. But I remember actually doing this where the guy said gravity, and I said, "Oh, Newtonian or Einsteinian?" And it was a blank face.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah, that works.
Because then you're going into literature, and it's safe to say that most people don't actually go into the literature.
Well, that was the guy who was a dentist who was retired, and all his family members went to college. Some had PhDs, masters. And by the end of the conversation, because it went that way, I talked about gas pressure first, and then he said gravity, and then I did Newtonian or Einsteinian, and he said, "Well, what do you mean?" And then I explained that. He says, "Where'd you go for your education? You're very intelligent." And I go, "The QE of Hard Knocks."
Amen, baby. Amen.
Oh, that's those three, Nathan. Black Swan, no curvature, gas pressure, no space,
Coriolis.
and Coriolis, no spinning. Perfect.
No scientific hypothesis for any of the astronomy, astrophysics, and what was the other one?
Cosmology.
Cosmology fields either. I think that's really one that gets very close to society. So yeah, it's grown on me, that housekeeping question.
Yeah, it's a recent addition, eh?
And I think it's probably getting Becky a lot more attention than she originally wanted. It's like everybody asked her, what's the scientific hypothesis you worked on today?
She go by Dr. Becky.
Yes.
What is it with this like secondary school nonsense? You know, if you're Dr. Smith, then you're Dr. Smith. You're not Dr. Johnny. Do you know what I mean?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they just named their front names Doctor. Would make a lot more sense to me.
But it's just it's
Yeah, technically you're supposed to call them by their last name after the doctor.
well, it's a formality, isn't it? Well, it's just. I remember.
Yeah, it is.
I remember having this discussion once when I think I was working in a shop at the time, and one of the guys I was working with had been out doing like surveying, and his particular survey form that he had didn't have a doctor as one of the boxes. And this woman that he's speaking to, he says, "Well, are you Mrs., Ms., Mr.?" I don't think he was PC at the time to ask such a question, but it would be now. And she went, "Well, I'm Doctor." And he argued with her. It's like, well, can't I just put Mrs.? Now, I can get where she would be coming from if she's like, well, no, my title's Doctor. Well, she's not going to say, well, my title's Doctor, but you can call me Dr. Becky. It's like, it's kind of plunging your own accreditation into farce, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's
but
just the way I
we're
do it.
talking about the same lady who sat down and was just like, well, I'm going to listen to some iTunes before I do some science at my computer, looking at nebulas and nonsense in a region that can't exist. So
I don't know.
it's a joke from the jump.
Maybe
What I
Dr.
see.
Becky's just using the title Doctor just like a lab coat, just for the feel of it or something.
If you look at the channel, it's a channel name. If you look at the behavior, it's pop science to me, because she's young. She's sitting there at the table most of the time with her PhD in the frame. Like, look at this. I am accredited. I mean, so It's
You
almost
know
like
what though?
childish.
You know what though? I'm starting to notice that's becoming a thing because more and more of that type of thing is hopping up on my stream on my YouTube.
You mean
Or what's
See
the
more
name?
and more. I think there's one that's called
Yeah,
Physics
but
Girl.
if you're accredited though, it's a formality to put it. You always address people by that. You don't address them by anything else. My girlfriend's dad is a doctor, a medical doctor, and everyone calls him Dr. Natale. No one calls him by his name Andrea.
Right.
Unless you're like his family. But if you're like a doctor of philosophy, you're also called a DR, like a doctor. It's the same way like some teachers are doctors. Doesn't mean like
It's not.
they're a scientist.
Let's not be too hard on the name because it's a YouTube channel name. That's not the problem. You can call it doctor this, doctor that. The problem is it's this giddiness and pop culture scientist stuff with sitting at a table with your diploma there.
I'm telling you, that's the new thing, man.
I
There was
know.
another
I don't
one
like
who
it.
I was like, you know what? It's cool because she's cute, but she's talking about straight nonsense. Not Dr. Becky, some other lady.
Oh, okay.
I was just like,
Do you mean like
Come on.
people
There
using
was-
doctor like doctor name to basically like look down on people and say things that aren't true? Is that what you're talking about? I thought you just meant like you had a problem with people being called doctor.
Oh no, not at all. No, if people earn that title, it's a title. Now, if you're asking me how much credence I give to titles in general, that's a different subject. But if someone's earned that title, it's no more reasonable to call me Mrs. than to call a doctor, or not to call them doctor if they are a doctor. That's just, now if you're a close personal friend with them, you might call them Fred. But if you're not, it's Dr. Geller, like the guy on Friends. That's how it's just a formality. Well, when you demean the formality, it's like, well, what's the point in having the formality? The formality is doctor, surname. That's how it works. As opposed to Dr. Christian name. You might do that if you're a pretender, but if you're an actual doctor, just call yourself doctor and then your surname if you're going to use your formal title. But you're deformalising a formal title. It's just a small gripe of mine, that's all.
No, I'm with
Yeah,
Tim.
it
It's
is. It is just a title.
Bubblegum science. It's just bubblegum pop science. Corny as hell. No, don't get me wrong. I don't
there
mind
are a
watching
lot
a
of
cute
people
girl
who have
talk
doctor
about
in front of their
scientific
name who
things.
kind of take advantage of it.
Let's put it this way: if I earned a doctorate, you can be damn sure you'd be calling me Dr. Oakley.
Yeah, exactly. Like you earn that shit. But, at the same time, like I just like a lot of times I'll see people like for instance, chiropractors. Their formal name is a doctor of chiropractic because it is a doctoral degree. And people get angry when they put doctor in front of their name. And they're like, well, they're not a real doctor though. And it's like, no, you mean a medical doctor. There's also osteopathic doctors. There are different types of doctors, and I think people get confused because, like, I'm not saying you're getting confused, but I'm saying there a lot of people are like, oh, they're not real doctors, and what they always mean and what they always think of is a medical doctor, which is just it's just a different type.
Yeah,
I could care less what they call themselves. If they have actual science behind them, great. They can call themselves whatever the hell they want. But when you call yourself a
Yeah,
doctor,
exactly.
you're not doing it, or some sort of scientist, and you're not doing anything sciencey. Well, then you're just kind of, hey, it's like calling Dr. Dre Dr. Dre. He's not a doctor, right?
I think
Yeah.
I think what you're speaking to is
Right.
like, again, a friend's example. So Ross and Rachel are in a hospital, and Ross introduces himself to one of the medical doctors as Dr. Geller, and Rachel says, "Don't say that here in front of the real doctors." It's like, no, he's just not a medical doctor.
Yeah.
He's a
Yeah.
oh, I'm trying to trigger QE. What don't ruin my punchline. He's a paleontologist.
Oh, that's real science right there, man.
Yeah, that's real science right there.
Oh yeah.
That definitely is.
Yeah, they have a preponderance of their own. But
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with chiropractors being called doctors. I would have a problem with a chiropractor trying to perform surgery on me. That's a different situation, like.
Yeah, I agree.
It's like
Dentists,
I don't care.
however,
If the chiropractor can fix my neck problem, I'm fine. I don't care.
Yeah, but dentists, they can go fuck themselves. They're not calling themselves doctors. How dare they?
Yeah, exactly.
no, actually, they do.
It was a joke, Arvin. It was a joke.
Right, because I lived with one.
Dentists aren't real doctors. Come on, they're salesmen.
But Nathan, why don't you rename your channel Dr. Oakley? I kind of like the sound of that.
Well, no, more to be in keeping with this pop doctor bollocks. It would be Dr. Nathy, wouldn't it? Dr. Nathy.
No, not Nathan. Dr. Oakley. Dr. Oakley is here to help them get rid of their pain.
Nathan, you have to get a doctoral degree just so we can all call you Dr. Oakley. That would be dope.
I vote for Dr. Nathy.
It's doable. It's like only a 6-year study or something.
You can just see Dr. Nathy with a little hand puppet. Hello, children. Dr. Nathy here. Let's talk about the Horizon.
Oh.
The
I think
difference is
that,
MD versus PhD, though, right? One is philosophy and the other one is...
Yeah, there are different types of doctoral degrees. So there's also a doctor of physical therapy, which is a DPT. There's all different types of doctoral degrees. So if you get a doctoral degree, you're a doctor. It doesn't matter what it's in. So PhD is a doctor of philosophy, which would be more like research oriented.
could it be pointed at differently? Isn't that if you have a profession that does something sort of medical related, isn't that just a physician? Isn't that more specific?
Well, it depends on what type of medical doctor you are. But like, for instance, like if you do medical research, you would have a PhD. So if, for instance, if you got a PhD in like something about neurobiology, then you would be doing research. You only get a PhD if you want to do research. But you can also get other doctoral degrees. You don't have to get a PhD.
You could have something, definitely scientifically related, like, psychology. You could do that. Is QE not here?
Yeah, exactly.
Is this falling on deaf ears? Is this a waste of time? Is he disappeared?
Wasting all these good jokes. Paleontology being real science.
Not getting a single nibble, am I?
In such a good mood.
Hey, I had it on volume, but I was in the other room. Did I disappear? What did I miss?
Oh, hold on. Let me try. Light is a wave.
No, he's definitely not here. He's not here.
Yeah, he's not here.
Yeah,
what happened?
Just look. See, I shine a laser on the double slit, and it's a wave.
Quick, Aaron, rumpus him.
I didn't mean to trigger you, Arwen.
It's a wave. For 10. There he is.
Oh my god.
See, it worked.
I'm here. Every time I talk, this fucking guy opens his mouth.
It's Arwen. Get him.
Every time. I'm here. Just being very disciplined. Thank you.
Has QE taken up meditation?
I'll be totally honest though. When watching, my wife binge consumes Friends periodically, and recently we did exactly that. And there were points when Ross was talking about his profession that I was literally throwing things at the screen, and I ruin it for my wife when things like that happen. Explaining how his pseudoscience bullshit is pseudoscience, and she's like, "You do realise this is a sitcom? I don't care. Just let the jokes roll."
Was that the part where they had like the debate about evolution, and what's her name was like basically just like told off the guy with the scientific degree.
Yeah.
Can't remember if it was
Yeah,
evolution
precisely.
or not.
Phoebe.
I need a really good lie.
Phoebe starts a discussion with Ross about evolution, and Ross is absolutely flabbergasted because it's essentially the basis of his career. And when he's talking about dinosaurs and evolution, she's saying, "I don't believe any of that." And he's like, "Don't believe?" And he can't quite believe his ears. And she's like, "No, I don't believe in any of that." And then he produces a load of fake dinosaur fossils for her, and later gives a fake dinosaur egg to a kid to bribe him, or a kid's dad, or something like that. You know, a lot of Friends does actually highlight some of the preposterous stuff via Phoebe. You know, some of the lies that we're told actually do get highlighted on that show. I even published one. I trimmed out a little bit where I can't remember which character, but someone says to her, "I need a really good lie," and she says, "About the moon landing." Pile of crap.
That was Joey.
Joey, yeah, he says, "I need a good lie," and she says, "Yeah, moon landing." There you go. There's a good lie.
Yeah, I loved it. That was great.
A gentleman came into the 24/7 the other night, and he was getting pounded on the Black Swan, and he said, "Well, yeah, I usually just argue evolution. That's my main subject that I'm expert at." With me in the chat.
Can I guess your
It
opener?
didn't turn out well for him. I said, "I'll give you 30 seconds."
That was your opener. I'll give you 30 seconds. I was going to guess evolution.
What's the scientific theory of evolution? That was it.
I was close. I was going to say evolution. What's that?
It's close. Yeah. He was done. He rage quit.
Yeah, I saw the guy type it in the chat. I just face palm like, oh my god, what did he do? And Quantum is in here right now. It's gonna be real fun. It literally lasted like 30 seconds.
Have you noticed that Paula's really up to her YouTube game?
Yeah, Paula's sharp.
Very. I mean, I've followed Paula for a very long time, but in recent months, she's sort of sharpened up her presentation skills, and they've just improved. There's no other way to describe it. Definitely up to game.
QE, I have a question for you about evolution. I was watching this.
What's that?
Sorry, what was that?
Evolution. What's that?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I was watching a debate. It wasn't really a debate. I think it was no, it was a debate. It was Professor Dave versus Kent Hovind. Kent Hovind was talking about he has this whole like dogs won't be anything but dogs. And then he was like, well, we don't say that. Dogs don't turn into anything other than dogs. And he was like, well, you think we come from like a eukaryotic cell, you think we come from like a bacteria. And the guy was like, we don't think we come from like a fucking amoeba or a bacteria or anything. And I looked into it. And a eukaryotic cell is supposedly one bacteria eating another bacteria and then like gaining organelles over time until they become a eukaryotic cell. And I was like, yeah, then you do think all eukaryotic life comes from a bacteria that ate another bacteria and then eventually evolved into us. So how did a eukaryotic cell become anything other than a eukaryotic cell? Or, that, I mean, like, I want to, like, hear your take on it. That sounds to me like, would a eukaryotic cell eventually turn into a person?
Isn't that the plot for Rogue in X-Men?
Yeah.
You want to hear my take on that?
Yeah, I mean, because a eukaryotic cell certainly does not contain all the information.
Where'd you get information at?
I'd imagine to be DNA.
Yeah, but that doesn't answer the question. See, I take them back. I don't get in the weeds with that. I go all the way back and say, okay, chemically, where'd you get DNA from? So I start off chemically because they can't do it. They can't get nucleosides and nucleotides, which make up DNA naturally, because it's a second law of thermodynamics violation. All those reactions are uphill. So I just go there chemically, and then once they're on the ropes, I said, where you get the information from? Because information is neither matter nor energy, and it's over. Real quick.
That's the thing. That's where I usually go. I just go to like abiogenesis and like how the fuck does all of that form happenstance situation? It shouldn't. But I was just entertaining it because I was like, and I know you wouldn't, but I was like, wait a second. Everyone says, including that Aaron Ra guy, who I watched a few of his videos. He's very good at talking, but not so good at
bonehead. He couldn't pass 5th grade general science.
He's good at convincing other people, not me. But he also says that too. He's like, we don't say that. We don't say one thing turns into something it's not. And it's like, well, that's every step. That's every step of the evolutionary process.
There's not that very famous picture with one of them that at one side is a monkey, and then there's stages, and then there's a man at the end.
Supposedly they're saying that the monkey, that monkey had the information to turn into a human or something.
Okay. Before we do,
so then why did it turn into a human first?
Just before we actually do get into the weeds, QE's explained the shortcut by way of information.
Do you recognize the shortcut? I just like entertaining it.
I appreciate that. I'm not going to stop you, but I just want it to be clear why the shortcut exists. So, just so that I understand, you understand, just paraphrase off the shortcut in terms of how you can cut out all of these weeds by asking for information, where information came from.
Are you talking to me?
QE?
No, I wasn't talking to you, QE. You made the point. I'm just checking that it's been understood how this request for where information came from or what is DNA, how that shortcuts out all this periphery.
Yeah, I mean, I already kind of understood it. I don't understand completely the information argument, but I've already talked to QE about that a little bit. In previous shows, I think I had a discussion with him about what was it? The whole double slit experiment and all different types of stuff.
It's not really much to understand with information. Just ask them where'd it come from.
Right. Well, first of all, how did DNA form out of happenstance?
Right.
Which, I mean, it didn't. Certainly not probable.
Well, you're 90% on the right lines.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Matter nor energy, correct?
Well, no, you're 90% on the right lines. When you say, how'd you get DNA from happenstance? If you just change the word information instead of DNA, because that's the crux of what you're talking about when you're describing DNA, the actual information itself, well, where do you get that from? Well, it doesn't have any, it's, what's the word? Not spiritual, what's the bloody word I'm rooting for? Not metaphysical. Supernatural, that's the word I was fishing for. It's supernatural. So none of their explanations are going to fit into this because it's information that you're asking them to justify its origins.
Right.
Also, bacteria aren't eukaryotes, man.
Yeah, well, they think eukaryotes came from. That's a theory now. It's called like
a scientific theory.
I don't know, but people think it. People think it is. I'm not backing it up. I'm just saying this is what people think. It's called like it's called like syndobiosis or something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's correct. From her name, I can't remember her name that postulated that nonsense. Go and look it up real quick. It's a chick that postulated it back in the day.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see a demonstration of a bacteria becoming anything other than a bacteria, which doesn't. And they don't claim that either. So that's already a shit on the argument.
Yeah, it focuses around the mitochondria. So,
right. Yeah.
I can't. It's been a while since I've been down that road because I usually kill it long before that.
Right.
With that in
I
mind,
think that's kind of a situation. Is I always start at abiogenesis, so I usually never entertain it. And Aaron Ra and all those guys don't like going back to abiogenesis because they think it's separate from evolution, and it's the precursor for it, so it can't be separate. It's just ridiculous.
No, it's a precursor. No. You have to get them to define. Well, if abiogenesis is not evolution, then they got to define evolution. And
right, that's
what
what I was trying to interrupt. That's why I was trying to interrupt. Hold on. That's why I want to make this into a concise summary for you laymen that might be listening. So, someone on the panel, perhaps, with what has been explained earlier in terms of monkeys, and then bigger monkeys, then slightly less hunched over monkeys, then a guy holding a stick, then a guy sat at a computer, right? One of you on the panel, with that in mind, this is deliberately leading, can somebody say what is evolution? Describe what evolution is. I'm going to move on from it once I've got a simplistic definition. With that in mind, I've led you enough to be able to give me this. Anybody?
I would say it's an imaginary explanation for similarities between organisms.
Perfect.
Or just one species
I'm going somewhere.
into
I've got
another.
it from someone. I don't need it twice. I want to keep this concise. So, given your description, we would have certain things, and what was it? Dogs were used earlier, right? Dogs will always be dogs, was the Kent Hovind rebuttal. Now, dogs are a classification of something, and the whole argument branches out once you've got a description of what they think evolution is that works outside the confines of the what's the bloody word? Convention. So the convention is called the taxonomic classification system, and they have essentially one thing that's been classified as something, in this case dogs, turning into something else, wolves, both of which have been classified arbitrarily within this convention called the taxonomic classification system. So once you work outside of that and get into the weeds of how things have changed from one to the other, you always come back to this shortcut. Information. What makes a wolf and a dog, while the information contained within the DNA, well, the information is the shortcut to this argument. Where did you get the information from? That's it.
So what you're saying is the information is the focal point. So like how would information arise?
Precisely.
Okay.
Yeah, because if they're telling you that a
starting to make
freaking
sense.
monkey can turn into a man, well, somehow or another, as bullshit as that is, somehow or another, the information would have to be in the monkey for that to happen. So where did that come from?
Right, and you rewind the process to the beginning of my crude, monkey turning into hunched over monkey to man to guide a computer. Well, if you rewind that back to the beginning of their explanation, you start off with this nothingness soup that turns into something with information. Well, no, it violates the second law of thermodynamics in terms of their explanation, but the information shortcuts you to their start of that process. Where did the information come from in the first place?
And in their story, that would have to be like the Big Bang. So.
Yeah, but that, to me, now it makes a lot more sense because it's truly the information that guides all of the processes that have to happen in order for life to come into being in the first place.
So I'm glad you've said that. Oh, that leads me beautifully. So
it's a chicken and the egg situation.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Oh, you've said the perfect words. So to have information, what do you need to have information?
Oh man, I don't know.
A knower.
A knower. Oh yes, now I remember. Yeah, this is exactly what I think what me and Kiwi talked about a while ago.
What's a knower?
Intelligence.
I can't remember.
Intelligence.
Yeah, I was gonna say intelligence, but
right.
A mind.
So without the intelligent agent, aka knower, there can be no information. And because energy cannot be created or destroyed, you can't have information be born from nothing. And to have the information at all, you must have a knower. Therefore, the only explanation for the origin of any information is a knower. So where did it all begin? With a knower. That's zero. Ground zero, knower.
wait a second. Just real quick, because I'm not saying you went over it too fast. You're very concise. Okay. So you're saying in order for there to be information, there has to also be a knower.
There must first be a knower. First.
To interpret the information?
No. To have information, there must first be a knower.
Why?
For knowledge to exist, there's got to be a knower. First.
Okay. So you're saying the knowledge can't exist without the knower first?
Precisely. Precisely, yes.
Well, so it wouldn't be anything without the knower? It would still be a pattern or something, right?
It wouldn't be anything.
Well, if you came across a sign on a wall somewhere that says, "Look, beware of dog," right? Well, that doesn't mean anything to some inanimate object that has no information or no knowledge, right? Even if somebody can't read the words, it just looks like letters. It doesn't mean anything until you have the knowledge or the information to be able to read that message. You get it?
Oh, so like it's almost like if a computer doesn't have code, it's just plastic or something.
No, not exactly. I'll carry on with chocolate's analogy because it was better. So
I'm starting to get it a little bit.
So the sign, beware of the dog, is tin, metal, and paint. Are tin and paint information?
Say that over again. It kind of blocked out for some
The
reason.
sign itself, as an inanimate object, is tin and paint, impressed into specific shapes that make out the words, beware of the dog. But the sign itself, the inanimate object that is the sign, that is tin and paint, is that sign information? Or, just so to expand, or is your understanding when reading that sign the information? Is it the sign, the tin and the paint, or you, the knower, and your interpretation of the sign? Which one is the information? The tin and the paint, or you, the knower, and your interpretation of it?
Okay, I understand that it can't be information without us knowing.
So to have information,
but
how
does that apply to DNA?
So to have the information, you must have a knower, by your summary, correct?
Yeah, they imply each other.
Well, it's an antecedent consequent relationship.
Right.
Well, first there must be
okay,
awareness
but how does
of communication.
that apply to
if I may,
DNA?
for a second.
Hold on, Owen. He's just asking me a question. Maybe QE will have the answer
How
if
does
I
that
don't.
apply to DNA?
What is DNA? Is it information?
Huh.
Aha!
DNA is just the medium used to transmit the information. It's not the information itself. Information is semiotic by nature. It doesn't have chemical formula or structure, charge, mass, momentum, or spin, or millielectron volts, kcals, or kilojoules. It's semiotic. Like I can say, look out, there's a tiger behind you, and put it in Cheerios, screws, nuts, bolts, smoke signals, right? That's not the information. It's the medium of conveyance. The information is not a part of the medium. Thanks.
Oh, hold on, QE. but information does have structure, though. That's what kind of defines it.
Excellent.
What makes one piece of information
Excellent,
stand
Darwin.
out from another.
Show me the structure of information, please.
Well, it's usually expressed in things that are information in itself. Okay, but yeah, it's basically the you have narratives, you have
Darwin.
you have
Me
tree
reading
structure.
a sign that says "Beware of dog." How do you structure that information?
I can. Yeah. I wanted to actually.
Go
Well,
ahead.
first off, you need to know that there is somebody out there that is communicating with you. It doesn't necessarily have to be you, but if, for example, a robot was programmed, it would have to be programmed to be able to encounter a new thing, a new
Oh my
life form, a
God.
new intelligence. Then it might not even need to know anything about the language or even the type of things that are communicated, but it can figure out from patterns that there might be communication going on. So that's step number one. It all depends on the layers of knowing, really, about what's going on.
Okay, I think I kind of understand it. So what you're saying is DNA is something communicated to us?
No, it's a conduit for information. It contains information, but it isn't in the same way the tin and paint isn't information. The DNA isn't information in and of itself. The physical structure can convey information. It's a conduit, if you will. I'm hoping to round this out with ink, paper, and glue molecules, because that will now make more sense to people having listened to this discussion. Quantum Eraser.
Can I have something before you do that, Nathan?
No, please don't do this to me. Go on, QE. Ink, paper, and glue. And then 10th man can have the last word.
Yeah, the ink, paper, and glue molecules are analogous to ribose, nucleobases, and activated phosphates. That's the chemical structure of DNA, right? And the technical instruction manuals is DNA, right? So they can't author that because they're inanimate objects.
Right. That's what I mean. That's what I was kind of getting at is there has to be an intelligence to author and put everything together in the same way that I write stuff on a sign, correct?
Yes. Yes.
I would
Oh,
say
that
it's
makes
the
so much
language of
fucking
microbiology, because that is the thing that is actually doing something, that is interpreting it. So it is the language of the microbiology, which is inherent to separated organisms. So I'd say that, it's the language of the microbiology world. Or
That makes a lot
language.
more sense. Thank you.
10th man.
Welcome.
Yes, I was going to just summarize. An effect cannot be more complex than the cause. Being can only come from being.
And with that, I'll say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who tuned in on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. Another massive thank you to today's Discord and G Plus panels for making this after show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!